So there's going to be a countdown then for us?
Oh no, it's just gonna go on. We're actually live right now. 2 people already tuning in. Beautiful. Yeah, we're gonna have to start dialing that in with our intro. I appreciate it, Joey.
Yeah, I'll get you on that for sure.
So, guys, we're back for part 2. I think where we left off, we were talking about meditation. I was personally talking about, I don't know if it's my ADHD or the fact that I just can't sit still long enough and sit in a silent position to actually meditate. And you had referenced another form of meditation.
Yes. So basically what you're talking about, the classic form of meditation, insight meditation or Vipassana meditation, is where you are clearing your mind. But in essence, what you're doing is focusing on the breath. You're drawing your attention to the breath and letting everything else fade away. And that, you're right. If you suffer from ADHD or anything like that, it can be tough to sit still. And so a practice that I really like is Tonglen meditation. This is a Tibetan compassion meditation. So I'm just going to walk you through a very basic, very rudimentary Tonglen meditation. So you sit and you would close your eyes and visualize the world and the people in it, and sort of this like this gray ocean that they're stuck in, and that they are drowning in this ocean of suffering, and the people are kicking at each other and lashing out to try and ease their suffering, to try and get out of the water. So you visualize this and you identify this suffering, and it could be heartbreak, or it could be the loss of a loved one, it could be death, it could be starvation, it could be any misfortune. And you identify with that, and you breathe in. You breathe in through your nostril, and you envision breathing in this sort of gray smoke. And you visualize this gray smoke within you mixing with your own suffering, identifying with their suffering and mixing with your own internal suffering. And the grayness mixes within you, and you exhale this pure, clean energy, clear.
So your body's filtering that negativity.
Transmuting this energy. And
okay.
So then you do this 3 times. You take in the second breath.
Is it exhaled through the nose or through the mouth, or does it matter?
I personally, in my practice, I don't differentiate. Yes, I would say in pranic breathing, you are exhaling through the nostrils. However, in through the nose, out through the mouth is actually scientifically backed for stress relief. So, fair question. So as we breathe in the second time, we visualize breathing in more of this suffering. And this could be, again, this may be a different form of suffering, a different permutation of that same suffering that we were experiencing before. So as we breathe this in, it merges and it combines with our own internal suffering. And we exhale this pure light. And we take a third breath. And on this third breath, we visualize breathing in all of the suffering that's left over. You visualize breathing in all of that. And then when you breathe in all of the suffering, it mixes with all of the suffering within you, everything that's left out. And you exhale this clean air, and your body is completely clear, like a quartz crystal. And now you visualize the Buddha sitting across from you. and his third eye in line with your third eye, beaming this beautiful radiant light into your being. And he's filling you with love and compassion and gratitude. And as your body is filled with this light, you actually begin to blossom with little tiny flowers all over your being. And as these flowers blossom and open, you shoot out this beautiful, radiant, sparkling light, and you're shooting out these sparkles of radiant positivity. And in this way, it's almost like when you're saying your prayers, and you're saying your prayers for people, you can compassionately send good energy and good vibes to people specifically. And you, in this state, you visualize them receiving this. And in their state from suffering to receiving this blessing, it's like a dance of joy. And there's this bliss and relief and ecstasy. And to see the causality and the duality between suffering and the relief of it, the cessation of it, is very beautiful.
When you were talking about looking at the Buddha and connecting third eyes and him reflecting this light on you, I just pictured almost like the sun's rays and actually like feeling a warmth from that light, like projecting down on your body. I don't know if that's a little hokey when I said it, but
no,
that's what I envisioned when you were saying it.
Yeah, it sort of fills you from within. It's like it's radiating from him into your being, but it almost fills you from your heart center almost, you know. I absolutely appreciate the being filled with light, you know. So yeah, that's Tonglen meditation in its essence is identifying with suffering outside in the world, and it may be a suffering that you are dealing with. And sometimes it's not about the compassion. Sometimes it's about dealing with your own internal suffering, you know, and part of the compassion comes in realizing I am suffering, and then realizing there's suffering out there as well, and other people are suffering the same way that I'm suffering. You know, you're not alone in this journey.
So I also wanted to ask you, what do you think is some of the importance in breathing practices? I've done a lot of study in like Wim Hof breathing methods, and also ones that tie into some Kundalini when it comes to breathing practices and reaching a higher state of consciousness. Do you feel like there's a rhythmic necessity to these breathing methods, or do you think it is all personal and you have to, you know, kind of dial it in? Or
there is a lot of money machines out there.
Yeah.
And if you can tell people that they're breathing wrong, and if you can be an instructor and teach people how to breathe, you're going to make a shit ton of money, because you're not even selling anything. You're just trying to tell people to breathe faster. No, I think I'm totally honest with you. I think breath work is a load of shit. Okay, I need to say this with a huge asterisk over
So first off,
respiratory therapists and sleep therapists do amazing work, and a lot of that has to do with proper respiration. But when it comes to breath work, I think it's very hokey. So what were you saying?
Jumping just specifically with the Wim Hof method. He's taught people to be able to hold their breath underwater for longer periods of time. I can give a few examples of people that he's done it for. David Blaine is a good example of somebody who taught. So I do think
that's different.
It can be more of a mind over matter thing when it comes to certain things, and just teaching your mind to get past certain stages and learning how to retain oxygen and also release it at a slower rate actually helps. There's interesting practices that Wim Hof compared to I remember doing like what's it called, like child classes prior to our daughter being born, and just whether it was breathing classes or whatever, they always had some weird things that I didn't necessarily know if they helped, whether it was like rhythmic and it was just trying to get your mind off of the pain, or
Right.
the other things going on. I didn't know if it was a distraction or what the actual purpose of it was. And yeah, there's definitely all kinds of different breathing methods out there where there's some hokey ones and some that I've actually seen some solidarity to.
Yeah, and I mean, like that being said, I'll talk about the 4-7-8 technique, and it's used for managing anxiety attacks, panic attacks. You breathe in for 4, you hold it for 7, you exhale for 8. So you breathe in for 4, you hold for 7, and you exhale for 8. I can't even do that.
So you have to do a more slow release then.
It's very slow. I'm talking and whatnot, but anyway, so it's a controlled thing. And when you're in this, anybody who is in the chat who has ever experienced a panic attack, when you're in that state, you can't control your breath. And I have actually been going through a panic attack, an anxiety attack, and gone out longboarding, not to calm myself, but literally to exhaust myself so that my breathing had to normalize. So if you can remember in the moment, if you can remember that 4-7-8, it can help you. And if you feel an onset of an anxiety attack, that's when it can really help you. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring up a topic. I want to make sure I draw a borderline on it so that everybody knows what I'm talking about. When we're talking about breathing methods, me and somebody else were talking about masks and the oxygen circulation in masks. And I made the comparison to when somebody might be having a panic attack when they breathe into a bag and recycle that air. And if it's just the rhythm of it, that sometimes just calms you back down.
Yeah.
And brings you back to, base level.
Yeah.
Because that's the only other similarity I can think of where the oxygen is getting recycled, like right in your mouth and your nasal passage.
Yeah. No, that's actually that's an interesting sensation of having that force. There is a slight force of when you exhale. Mm-hmm. And it could be likened to that, like the breathing into a bag, like for a panic attack, as you said. That's something I hadn't really thought about very much, and it's interesting. I wonder if people are comforted by their masks.
Okay. I don't know if that's the common practice of it, but some people actually I wouldn't agree. Actually, though, there are members of society that they feel more comfortable when they see other people in masks as well as themselves. So I feel like it's definitely possible.
Hey, we could all stand to breathe more, right?
Mud Rabbit said, when you panic and hyperventilate, you get too much oxygen. Breathing from a bag helps reduce the oxygen intake.
That's interesting.
Good to know.
Interesting. And hence, actually, that 4-7-8 technique does make sense because you're slowing the oxygen intake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the release
somewhere.
Yeah.
Because with the anxiety attack, I get this huffing and puffing, and that's when the body is like, oh my god, I have so much going on, this fight or flight. I need air. I need oxygen so I can fight something, so I can run away. Yeah.
So I was responding to somebody in the chat. She said, good morning. I think it's one of our friends from the Philippines that tunes in every once in a while. So I just wanted to say good morning. It's night for us, but good morning to you guys.
Morning, yes.
Wherever you happen to be.
I wanted to read just a short passage from Alan Watts, Become What You Are.
Ooh, I love some Alan Watts. Go ahead, lay it on me.
You as well, man. It has been said that the highest wisdom lies in detachment, or in the words of Chuang Tzu, the perfect man employs his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing. It refuses nothing. It receives, but does not keep. Detachment means to have neither regrets for the past nor fears for the future, to let life take its course without attempting to interfere with its movement and change, neither trying to prolong the stay of things pleasant, nor to hasten the departure of things unpleasant. To do this is to move in time with life, to be in perfect accord with its changing music, and this is called enlightenment. In short, it is to be detached from both past and future and to live in the eternal now. I love that.
I've heard somebody paraphrase that to tuning to the present, not being worried about the future, not being worried about the past or stuck in the past, because a lot of people deal with those on different levels. But yeah, being in the moment, like we were talking about before, is so important. Absolutely. And not distracting yourself with the outside that might not have a difference. I mean, worrying about your past isn't going to help your present. Worrying about your future isn't going to help your present. The only thing that's going to help your present is worrying about your present.
And what's gonna help your future is worrying about the present, you know?
Because it'll bring you to that point.
Yeah, you can't help your future self by worrying about your future self. You have to worry about yourself right now, or else you're not going to make it there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Add some more comments coming in the chat. Breathing slowly through the nose and exhaling slowly through the mouth.
Okay.
That has a calming effect.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to say experientially, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what we were saying before when I was asking if there was a certain method when it came to that meditation of how you should at least breathe out of your nose or you should breathe out of your mouth. And
yeah, so I believe that typically in Eastern culture, it would probably be taught to breathe out of your nose. But with modern medicine and Western, I'm going to call it Western yogic practice, Western yoga, it's often taught in through the nose, out through the mouth. And me personally, I find that to be the most natural. So when I am meditating and just in a relaxed state of mind, and when I'm trying to practice proper breathing, I'm breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth. And that's just typically passively what I'm doing without really thinking too much about it because it feels good. People don't realize how much they're shortening their lives just by not even breathing correctly. You're like literally starving yourself for air.
That's something I learned in sports, and I really do think whether you're talking about singing, whether you're talking about making yourself feel better with anxiety, or whether you're talking about sports and being able to grab more oxygen, we used to be taught don't bend over when you're tired and close up all of these things. What you want to do is actually put your hands over your head, open up your lungs, and actually get a better release of everything and better flow.
On the flip side of that, in cross country, we were taught to keep our, after you run, you want to keep your hands behind your back and like open all of this so that you're breathing completely and actually stretching all of this out while you're breathing into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you see a lot of people when they're tired, they like to bend over and they have their hands on their thighs and you're just exhausted. But you're actually closing it up and making it worse and depriving more oxygen from your lungs.
Yeah, you're like actually literally like cramping yourself more and more.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Making it worse.
Did we touch on I think we touched on sugar the other night. And you were talking about
let me grab this tuning fork here real quick.
Okay.
So we touched on it. Basically, I have a caffeine thing. I don't even have my coffee with me right now. I was gonna make coffee before the stream.
I ended up making tea instead.
Yeah, got a little silly.
Nothing wrong with that. A little spiritual.
A little spiritual tea won't hurt anybody. So I have a thing with caffeine, and I had like 3 monster drinks in one day. My lymph node, I know, dude, don't tell me about it. My lymph node, like under my jaw, was like swollen from the sugar. That was like 150 grams of sugar. So it was painful actually and mildly throbbing. So I took my weighted tuning fork, which is weighted to it's tuned to 136.1 hertz, which is really like in accordance with ohm, which is the 7.8 hertz Schumann resonance. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. So I was in pretty intense pain, feeling this throbbing. So I took my weighted tuning fork and ran over the afflicted area in my jawbone 3 or 4 times. And when you're over this area, you can actually hear a ringing in your ears as your jawbone resonates. It's pretty cool. So as I went over that area 3-4 times, the pain actually completely.
Do you think when you feel that in your bones, do you think it's because that vibration is resonating with you and it's dialing in?
Yeah, I believe that you are finding that resonant frequency of the
bone density or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever happens to be resonating at that frequency, like that is, as we were talking about levitation and things of that nature, when you find the resonant frequency of an object, and this is science, this is not abstract, new age, spiritual bullshit. When you find the resonant frequency of an object, that object begins vibrating. It's literally science. Like this handpan over here, like if I start singing loudly enough in the same pitch, it's going to actually start vibrating.
Yeah.
I don't want to be super annoying to my neighbors right now, but it's just sympathetic resonance.
Well, it's the same idea of somebody hitting a high note and shattering a glass.
That's exactly it, because the glass can't oscillate the way that the airwaves are doing so. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing that we've figured these things out with sound, though, and haven't actually composed anything where it's always negative. Like if you think about sound resonancies being actually used in history, I think of like the brown noise used by the military. Sure. I think of like horrible ways that we use sound, whether it's torture or
sonic cannons and things being used in riot gear and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Against protesters. Yeah. No, and that's the thing, is you have to definitely be aware of these things. And
but I guess I'm discluding music, because that is something that we have where we get that good resonancy from.
Yes. And to a certain degree, I mean, even in ancient Egypt, they were employing sound healing. I don't know if you've ever watched The Pyramid Code on Gaia TV. It's fantastic documentary series.
I have a love-hate relationship with Gaia.
I feel you on that. I feel you.
There's a balance.
There's a balance, but the Pyramid Code is worth checking out. But basically, you're talking about these chambers where a patient would go into the chamber and they would fill the chamber with sound, and the doctor would listen to hear what the ailment was of the patient. And it definitely vibes with that sympathetic resonance of resonating a certain particular part of the body to determine what's wrong with it or to alleviate those symptoms.
No, I understand what you mean, because we've described residencies in multiple different ways. And when do you think they're resonating at the same frequency? When you're getting that common vibration between the two, do you think the density changes in matter at that point, or do you think it's moving and it's fluid, and you're able to pass through that fluid object?
I think that the particles begin oscillating.
Okay.
And I do believe that is when it would be able to either move through the object, or in the ways of the ancient Egyptians, to melt the stone or to quarry it. There's definitely different applications of sound that I don't think that we can tap into with our understanding of it, with our technology.
Like what? Like what do you mean?
Specifically, as we talked about before, levitation. Literally,
you think you don't think we'll ever have the ability to do that, or you just think we just don't have it right now?
We don't have it right now, and it's because we're chasing a different god. We're chasing the microchip. So,
that's another fun path.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. It's all well and good. It's all just a different form of magic.
Do you think it's a separation between science and nature, or do you think it's a pursuit of wanting science more than nature? Like wanting the mechanics of things? Because when I say science, because I do
it's a one thing. I think it's a one thing that we want more and more, and we see that we can have more and more, so we're going to keep pushing for more. And now that we have this thing called society, it's never going to stop. I mean, I can't tell one of our viewers to completely drop out of society, because I've had this conversation with people. Well, I'm reliant on medicine. If I don't take this medicine, I will die. That sucks, and I don't know what to tell you, because as far as I'm concerned, society can fuck off. So it's difficult to balance these two. You know what I mean? Because in some ways you have to be reliant on the system if you are, and you have to have certain medicines in place to literally survive. But at the same time, if you can find a natural alternative, say if there's some form of homeopathic way to deal with a form of diabetes or something of that nature, that's probably the better way to go than to start the insulin battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. Oh, gosh.
But sometimes there's nothing you can do about these situations. So that's the point in the conversation where I'm not sure what to tell people quite yet.
Yeah, no, I don't. And I don't think there's ever an answer for everybody. That's the one thing, is I feel like different things resonate with different people. Whether we're talking about diet, whether we're talking about health issues, there's so many things that resonate with different people, and there is no right answer for everybody. So I mean, you'll never reach that synchronicity with everybody where you're pleasing everybody. I think it's impossible. I mean, you're always going to have people it just doesn't resonate with.
Well, and then if you're pleasing everybody, are you actually pleasing yourself?
The question is, did you please yourself before you started worrying about other people?
Yeah, right.
Because I feel like sometimes then at that point, are you now distracted by others and no longer worried about yourself? And do you let yourself diminish in that process of helping others? Because I think that's often forgotten when people say you have to work on yourself before you can help others.
Yeah, finding yourself.
You can't let yourself diminish while you're helping others either. I think that's also detrimental to the conversation.
In finding yourself, you lose yourself, but you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
So yeah.
But you can keep tipping it in the sense of hoping that something comes out.
Yeah, and you can keep tipping it to the point of exhaustion. That's exactly right.
Yeah, or death in some sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no, you never want to get to the point of a crash. You never want to crash. You don't want to drive yourself down into that. Taking care of yourself, self-love, giving yourself the appreciation and care that you need. A big thing that changed my relationship with myself, I guess, was rather than pursuing a girl, rather than going out after a certain vibe, I just became the vibe. Like I am just basically embodying what I want in life, and the universe just picks up on that. That's the way the universe works. It gives you what you are.
Yeah, no, it does. And then what you can fathom from the universe. If you can't fathom yourself I feel like it's the same thing we were talking about with drawing energy from all these different places. If you can't fathom yourself or see yourself in a positive situation, you can never manifest that. If you can't envision something positive for yourself or a better existence, then I also feel like you limit yourself from ever being able to reach that point.
This is going to bring me to one of my favorite quotes. It's actually an Einstein quote. I'm going to have to paraphrase it, but it's watch out for negative people. They have a problem for every solution.
Yes.
I mean, really. And we all know those people where I don't care. You can be the most kind,
to me, those are the excuse people.
Yeah, exactly.
Why they can't do something or why it's not doable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can feed into them as much as you possibly want. You can say, but you have all of this going for you. No, the world is shit. And it's unfortunately just an attitude thing. And we were talking about earlier actually, this was before we were live. We were lobbying and talking about how like the people with the bad vibes are often the people that need the love the most, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it's a shame when you you can see that, but then also you're like not, it's like,
Usually and that's the detriment for my ability to see those vibes is usually I'm in a state where I'm not ready to help people. If I'm going into a situation wanting to help people, I won't put myself that deep into the process because I want to be able to guide somebody and be that sitter that they need to guide them through whatever journey they're going on. That's how I can help people. I can't do it when I'm immersed with them all of the time. Sometimes I'm going on another journey that might not be following the same path that they're on at the moment. And that's the hardest part about my ability to read people's auras at the times that I'm able to. And yeah, it can be saddening that I have to separate myself from certain situations, but I know in the long run, if I live by the idea that myself has to be fixed before I can worry about others, I have to stay to that truth because I can't worry about other people's well-being over my own.
No, because I mean, ultimately, if you're worrying about,
unless it's family, that's the only time that I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
Well, beyond that, like if you are worrying about them above yourself, and I kind of know the point you're getting to, like I would die for them, right? But beyond that,
that's the other thing. It's because you would make that sacrifice regardless if it would hurt yourself for somebody else that you care deeply about.
Yes, but ultimately, the love that you have for those people, like what they, instead of doing things for them, what they would have you do is do things for you, and then you will be truly acting out of a place of love.
And there's a balance to it. It's because I think that can infringe on the idea of enabling. I think if you're thinking you're helping somebody and you're actually not helping them, if it's not more of an immediate situation, I couldn't justify it the same way. Where if it was an immediate danger, where if I didn't take action, the situation wouldn't get taken care of. I don't feel like that in enabling situations. Enabling situations, you can find yourself in a long, drug out process of thinking you're helping somebody and you're actually bringing them steps back, or they're becoming reliant on you. I am a big advocate of teach a man to fish rather than just hand him a fish.
Yeah, that's right. You want what is it? You want to feed a man or you teach him to fish, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I do appreciate that. And that's kind of like taking a problem to the root of it. You know, you don't want to just cure the symptoms. You want to figure out the root cause of the problem.
Yeah. If you don't know what the problem is, I mean, that has to be the first step of solving it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like often in, like, for an example, if you are in a psychedelic state and you're catching bad vibes off of somebody, you might not be in a mental state to sit down with them and be like, look, let's talk about your life, you know? But at the same time, you are sensitive enough to pick up on that, and it's kind of good for you, like kudos. And two, it's showing that it's showing that they have things that need to be addressed, and simultaneously, like you in recognizing that, you are actually able to help them just from the fact that you see that they need help. That means that
the other thing I worry about in those situations are, am I just picking up a hint of what's there? Like, by avoiding that situation, am I avoiding a situation that could get worse?
That's true. No, and
maybe it is already out of your hands and you don't know it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm just viewing this kind of from like a domestic perspective.
Oh yeah, and I'm playing devil's advocate with your ideas.
Well, at the same time, no, I mean, like, if you were to take this from the perspective of a stranger that you don't know, and like say like a homeless dude, and you're like trying to figure out his life and whatnot, it's the problem of other minds. You don't know what got him there. You don't know his path. You don't know where he's going. You don't know how he's going to spend the $5 you just gave him, you know?
Sorry, had to put my rabbit back. I could hear you though.
Yeah,
no. If you, there is that personal connection that's more sometimes important to people if they're going to make that effort. And I worry sometimes that can also enable you from helping other people if you don't have a personal connection, because that's the other thing is our society is so closed off with one another that you don't develop a lot of personal connections with other people. So the people that you reference as those close personal people usually are your family. Your friends would come after that, and there's usually an order of how people would fall in line, and then you get all the way down to acquaintances and people I've seen before, and you literally make a track record of how much action you would apply according to the severity of the situation. And it's interesting. And I don't know if it's the animalistic nature of people worrying about their immediate or what it is. I mean, there's something definitely inherited about it.
Yeah, that's no, it's absolutely inherited. I like that you mentioned that. Yeah, it seems to be born out of a survivalism that our genetic code must continue, right? That's how we feel. And I think that there is a frequency to life. Life wants to live. The universe is here. It's a Goldilocks universe. Just so happens the universe can support life. We live on a Goldilocks planet. Just so happens the planet can support life. And here we are just like observing all of it. We're like, this is pretty cool.
Meldrabbit added an interesting comment. She said, just be yourself and those that resonate with you will appear.
Exactly. Your soul tribe, your satsang.
Don't go looking for it.
Yeah. No, the most beautiful things in your life are just the things that come, that like, it's just what happens and something that you didn't necessarily have to struggle for.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think we actually touched on this the other night too. When you actually go out looking for these things is when you won't find them. Yes. It's when you actually take that time and let them come to you, because
yeah.
I mean, it comes back to trying to manifest these things in your life. If you also think that you're never going to reach these things, they're not going to come.
Will. Exactly, man. So it's all about the limitations that you define for yourself. So manifesting is incredibly powerful, but when you start manifesting, you need to be specific and you need to know exactly what you want. Don't just say, oh, I want a partner who's perfect. Define that. What is a perfect partner? What do you want in that partner? Write it down. Manifest it. Make it happen. Actually think these things through so that you're not just a mess desiring a little bit of this or a little bit of that. There was actually just today a friend was telling me about this 90-10 principle. So when you're with somebody, you're in love with like 90% of them, but then like there's that 10% where you're like, I want like them to be different, or there's like they could have more of this that I would like more.
I think strangely that's associated with sex too. I think certain genders also going into marriage think that they can change more about the person that they're going in with, rather than a male compared to female perspective when it comes to actually approaching marriage and what it means to them.
Expecting change.
Yeah. Because we've always had this idea in society that when a man gets married, he wants his wife to stay exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And the wife goes into the marriage thinking, I want the best version of him that we can get. Like, it's actually more of a positive message. It's not a bad message.
No,
it's the fact that the male perspective is, I think you're perfect just the way you are. Don't change, which is also a positive message.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And but there is a yin and yang to that.
Yes.
And there's going to be change involved.
Yeah. No, the beauty side of it is like, I love you exactly how you are, and I want the highest form of yourself. But the ugly side of it is, don't change, and I want to change all of this about you. So you have this like toxic positivity versus, it's really interesting, as you said, yin yang kind of concept.
Mud Rabbit made a perfect point. She says that because when you are looking for it, you're not being objective.
That's true. No, that's okay. So actually, it brings me back. So the 90-10 concept. So you leave somebody because you're looking for that other extra 10%. So now you found somebody with that 10%, and then you realize, I'm actually kind of missing that other 90%.
Oof. Yeah.
Which also reminds me of a saying that I heard long ago, and it stuck with me. I don't even remember where I heard this. Don't leave the one you love for the one you like, because they'll leave you for the one they love.
There's a lot of people in the world that are I like to classify them as grass is greener people. They always tend to look where the grass is greener and where the better situation is. And if you would just go into relationships knowing that there's an amount of sacrifice with any relationship, and I think that's just a healthier way to approach it. If you think that nothing's ever going to change and you don't want anything to ever change, you're not going into any relationship with the right mindset. I feel like it's dangerous.
You have to have zero expectation of change. You have to enter a relationship with zero expectations on the other person. You have to want to be with them as they are. And beyond that, wanting to be with them as they are, you have to obviously first be comfortable with who you are and where you are, and able to love yourself and be emotionally available in order to be accepting of them. And if you're already in a relationship, that's okay. It just means that you have to become that emotionally accepting individual, and you need to work on embracing your own emotions, everything that you are processing, whether you're processing it publicly or if it's something that you are privately processing. It's everything that has to be worked through in order to better a relationship or to sanctify it, if you will.
Oh yeah. And just because we're on relationships, I feel like the other key to that, besides expectations, are communications about what expectations you have. I feel like that's the biggest. Well, communication in general is the biggest in any relationship, but communicating your expectations out of a relationship, whether it's with your son or daughter, whether it's with the relationship, because I don't know how many times I hear about situations where people were in love with each other. They just had different parenting views, and then they didn't realize once they brought a child into the world that they both felt differently about it. Yeah. And coexisting at parents is so important. Like I feel like it's so detrimental to society, especially I was a single father for a while, and knowing how hard it is to reclaim the rights that other people have burnt down in the past for you. As being a single father in Illinois, you don't actually have a lot of rights to a child being, it doesn't matter if you're on the birth certificate, it doesn't matter if you've proven by DNA. There's a certain number of hoops you're going to have to jump through in order just to be in the same ballpark, and it takes a long time just to get there. It's really interesting. The court
Illinois is a very brutal state as far as fathers' rights are concerned, but it's not alone in that. There's a lot of states across the country that are...
The two major are California and Illinois.
Yeah, it's interesting the parallels between Cali and Illinois. It's kind of odd.
There's some good ones.
Well, yeah.
The two that I like to point out the most are the view on unions, and then also the view on fathers' rights, because those are the ones that stand out to me as the most, and the ones that have directly impacted my life, where I can actually notice them in both sides. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, but that's the one thing I love about states is I love the idea that you can go to any state and they have their own individual rights. There's not a federal government reaching over and telling the states what they can and can't do.
It's a family law.
Yeah. That's the beauty of the country that we have. If you don't like your state, you can move out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. That's true. And in that way, it's kind of weird and antiquated, but in that way, like relationship expectations are cultural and regional. It's like,
Oh yeah.
well,
Oh yeah.
like these are the expectations. Are you surprised? You know, like,
Yeah. No, and I
oh,
think
sweet.
expectations and social standards fall in line a lot. Like what's good for the community or what the community expects ends up being those laws that are put into place. Like that's what man law eventually develops into.
Man law.
I think man law is a great reference when you're talking Bibles or when you're talking any religious perspective because for some reason it always ties back into that. Whether it's the Ten Commandments or anything else, I just feel like there's so much human influence when you're reading it that you have to know that this wasn't a benevolent being that put these commandments into place. For me personally, I
So
can't make the judgment for anybody else.
I'm
That's
so
just for
happy.
my personal resonance with it.
No, I'm so happy you bring this up, man. This is a really excellent talking point. So, the God in the Old Testament and the God in the New Testament are quite clearly different gods. I mean, and this is actually espoused beautifully in
So you're
Egyptian.
not saying that this is just two parts of one God. You don't think one's the spiteful God that punished humans, and one was just the nice God that was involved in all the miracles and sent his son.
In a parable, yes, that is the difference, but historically, no.
I think historically, the only thing that we do know about the New Testament is that it was clearly written off of the Old Testament.
Yes,
And
yeah, and it was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
yes,
So, if we look at the creation story and then analyze Egyptian mythos, the demiurge is the creator god within the Egyptian mythos. So you have the light, the source, the ultimate creator, which is God. But then God created all of these abstract thought forms. God created wisdom. God created gravity. God created all this shit, and it's just floating out here. So God created a physical world creator. There wasn't a physical world yet. God created a God to make the physical world. But this God got so wrapped up in himself that he was like, yeah, I am God. So he created a world and he said, you'll worship no other gods before me. This is the God of the Old Testament. This is the demiurge. The demiurge guarding the halls of Amenti. The halls of Amenti are where you transcend through into this light, into the actual oneness, the real God, the real source. So, yeah, the Old Testament God is literally the demiurge of Egyptian mythos, basically tricking you into thinking that he's the true creator. And actually, in truth, he's not even completely tricking you. He thinks he is the creator. And in their mythos, he didn't know until the goddess of wisdom came and was like, hey, dude, look around you. There's other stuff.
it's true.
Yeah. So that it all ties together. I really love how far back all these stories go.
Excuse me. Sorry.
You're good.
No, when it comes to the creation stories and stuff like that, I really do think they all tie together in multiple religions, and they definitely touch on each other. And it seems like modern Christianity or even classic Judaism seems to have a tie to so many other religions.
It's like they're dismembered, sort of, you know.
Yeah, they're fractions of each other, and I feel like that's what you see in Christianity all over the place. The churches are named many different things, and an interesting question that I always ask somebody that considers themselves Christian is, what do you think of Mary Magdalene? Because you see this very hateful rhetoric come from some people about somebody that they have to mention that that this person was a whore, and she was just one of the worst members of society. Like, yes, like all I'm like, so the fact that she followed Jesus doesn't help any of that.
Not
Like,
just the
we don't
fact that
discredit.
It's not that she followed him, it's that she was allowed to follow him in these times. It's a woman wouldn't have simply been following a group of these men. And Jesus, being a teacher, was a rabbi. Jesus wasn't a Christian. Jesus was a Jew. And Jesus was a rabbi, and it was societally expected. It was societally normal and societally expected, not Jewish law, but expected that a rabbi is to be married, because otherwise, how can you understand communal rights and things of that nature? So Jesus, come on, Jesus had to be married. Who was his wife? Mary Magdalene. And before the Council of Nicaea, before they determined which books of the Bible were canonical and which weren't, there were all these other gospels, and some of them got kicked out. And among them were the gospels according to Mary Magdalene. And if you look up online, there's a free PDF. Look up the Nag Hammadi Library. Doesn't matter how you spell it.
No, I know all of the. I know. So I study religion. That's one of my favorite things to do, is actually study religion. And I was going to ask you a question about how much you knew about about Christianity as a whole and Judaism. And before you take me down to the path of all of the books that we're taking out, whether we're talking about Lilith, whether we're talking about some of the other divine entities that I love to mention.
Sophia.
Yes, Sophia. I wanted to know what your perception of a character in the Bible is. And I want to know what you think this character is, because I think there's been multiple depictions of this character, and wondering what or who it is. What do you think of the entity in the Bible known as Yahweh?
Interesting. So Yahweh, that is who I would identify as the creator God. And that is, as I was describing earlier, that would be the name of the demiurge. I don't believe that Yahweh is the name of the true light. If you look at the Old Testament as saying, you'll worship no other gods before me, and if you look at the Torah as saying this, then this Yahweh God, this is quite a jealous God, and this is the demiurge creator God of the physical world. This is not a true God of the light necessarily. I might collect a lot of hate for saying that, but that's just honestly the way that I have interpreted. And I've read so many different books and texts, and this is just my own filtered process of information. I find that, yeah, the God of the Old Testament and that Yahweh is the personification of this demiurge creator that's not necessarily our spiritual source, although maybe creator of the physical world. And even that being said, I find all of this to be a very interesting mental exercise, but that does not describe my actual belief as to the creation.
Oh yeah, no, we're just kind of shooting the shit about general ideas.
I think it's fascinating.
I'm not tied down. Like we both talked about prior. Neither one of us seem to be tied down to any earthly religion.
Yeah. I love all of it. I think it's all really
fascinating. So in my studies of Christianity, I've noticed that when you're talking about Yahweh, first I want to address Mud Rabbit. She said Yahweh is who they call Jehovah. I think it's interesting that there's a whole name created for this entity, rather than saying God or Jesus or the Holy Spirit or any of the other names already divulged to this person.
The Tao, the way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting noticing the capitalization of it sometimes, and the spellings of it sometimes. I think there's a lot of separation in those things, and I think names are very important. So I wonder. And then there's
it
also
plays into Kabbalah mysticism, of course.
Well, and there's also the vast idea of translation missteps.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the early on
we got here. Look what we got here. We're talking about creation, and the Penner perspective gets to show up. I love it.
Excellent.
So right now, you just jumped in. We're talking about Yahweh. Who is Yahweh in the Penner perspective's eyes?
That would be the creator of all.
Okay.
Good evening. It is 1:00 in the morning. I had to come out to the studio because I wasn't going to be filming
We
in
appreciate you
bed
showing
with
up.
a pillow and all that kind of stuff. So I apologize about the spirit. However, Jake messaged me and told me that you guys were on that topic. So whatever I can do to help, that would be just great.
I love the religious perspective that you offer to us, because you have a pretty interesting perspective when it comes to most people that consider themselves religious, for the simple fact that you recognize the Sumerian texts, the Mayan texts. I think not all Christians look at those texts at all. Some people like to cut themselves off from those, and you take that in as your whole pie.
Yeah, I guess. I apologize for the eyes. I had
You're fine.
some kind of a reaction this evening, so it's all screwed up. I was taken to the pyramids when I was young. My father being Mexican, in Mexico City, we had the anthropological museum. So we see a lot of those aspects, and yeah, a lot of the religious aspect that I have comes from my grandparents in Oklahoma. So, hey, Divine Tiffany, and they are really Bible thumpers, and they don't get into the other stuff, and it's basically what you're considering. They would consider all those other texts as satanic texts and altered texts, and something that you can't necessarily follow along, because anything that is not the King James is a lie and will take people away from the trip. So, hey, Mud Rabbit, always good to see you guys. And I had this big problem between my dad being Mexican and my mom being American, and they have different ways of doing things. And so I always had the battle of both their personalities in my mind. My dad was raised Catholic. He became Lutheran because of my mom, which is why I'm Lutheran as well. The thing with the Catholic Church is it really is, it adjusts to all the religions that it's in. So you have Catholic churches in Mexico that have no reference to Christ. Because what the people in that area did is they would just change the name of their divinities. They had the maize god. Well, that ended up being Saint whatever. And then they had the rain god. Well, that was another saint. And then you had the war god. Well, that was another saint. So they could reference all the different saints in their pantheon of gods, right? I used to love mythology, Greek mythology, and so I'd read into it a lot when I was younger. And so all of these things, you've got the Mayan texts, and you've got that sort of, you got the Greek mythology and everything else. And so you kind of get along, you try and balance everything out. The problem with that is that you start creating that same Greek pantheon. Okay, now I understand what that pantheon is, and it is a satanic message. But let me explain that. It's not as clear cut as what everybody likes to say. Oh no, it's not. Everybody's got it right. Everybody can do it. I got a cousin in Mexico. Whenever I tell her, well, you just gotta, look for the truth. She says, well, what's the truth? Whose truth is truth? Whose God is the real God? Yeah, okay, that's her perspective, and she can do that. And she's going to have to live in the afterlife with those limited beliefs. Now, I went into all of them. I mean, I've studied SETI. I was interested in UFOs and all that kind of stuff when I was 7, 8 years old. And it's all those unexplained things that really wanted to. I didn't want the answers that everybody knew. I wanted to know what was the thing that Bermuda Triangle. I wanted to figure that shit out. Why was everything disappearing? What else was behind it? And that's where you get into the Bimini Road and the pyramids under the water, and all the different civilizations that lived under the water. And I was always interested in Atlantis and all that kind of stuff. And so, my grandma would never believe in Atlantis. That's just myth, and nobody says anything about that, and that's just BS. But it's there. Lots of people believed it. Plato even wrote about it.
let me jump in here. Let me tell you one of the other topics we were talking about. We were talking about some of the books that we're taking out of the Bible. What are your feelings about some of the books that were taken out of the Bible?
Which books specifically are we talking about? Apocryphal? Are we talking about Dead Sea Scrolls?
Well, we were talking about the Nag Hammadi library.
Yeah, and we referenced Mary Magdalene. We referenced Mary Magdalene's books. We referenced the story of Lilith.
It's the vast majority of the Gnostic texts. The Gnostic.
Oh well, yeah, the Gnostic. My grandmother hated the Gnostic texts, and they thought that was just anti anything. So they always had serious problems with those. And yeah, I take it with a grain of salt, and they are my moral compass. They always have been. But there are some things to where I wanted to go beyond and understand. So yeah, I've read the Vedic texts and I've, read all those things. And once you start getting the bigger picture, you start to understand they're all telling the same story, but from different perspectives.
Yes.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
The Vedic text, you basically say that we were blue monkeys that were serving the aliens that came down. And that kind of fits in with the Sumerian text of, those from who the heavens came. And so they're telling the same story. And all of a sudden we've got...
That plays into this concept that we were made from clay, right? To serve these gods of gold.
Yeah, well, see, there we get into the fact that money isn't evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. So people that want to go after their own, because it usually has to say, you can see it. I'm taking some antihistamines and that sort of stuff. They sent me a bunch of translation shit to do today, so I've been kind of busy. I haven't even kept up with this. But what happens is that the ones who are here, oh yeah, I love the Book of Enoch. The Gospel of Thomas, I haven't read too much. Read some of it, not too much. The problem is that when those who from the heavens came here, well, they influenced all the ones that were around them, and they left their stories here. And so those were the stories.
Are you talking about the Anunnaki?
Yeah. That's the translation of Anunnaki, those from whom the heavens came.
Or fallen angels, or however you want to.
Well, see, that is the biblical text, and that's the way I see it, because it's all telling the same story.
But
okay,
the Sumerian, it's the Anunnaki, correct?
Yeah. But, that was transferred into... the Egyptian texts and everything else. I mean, they take the majority of the stuff straight from the Sumerians as well, and that's Babylon. And we've known biblically that Babylon wasn't necessarily a good place. It was supposedly wonderful. It was one of the most advanced civilizations of its time. They had the hanging gardens and gold and food and water and everything else that we would love to have, but the problem is that when you have to understand the Creator to be able to love the Creator, to be able to do what the Creator wants us to do. And most people don't get into the idea of understanding who the Father is and why he did the things that he did. Now, he wrote down to us and he told us all the things that he did and why he did it. He made this for us. Why? So that we can enjoy his creation. Through our puffy, swollen eyes, he can see his creation through our perspective. Because whenever you see everything, I mean, look at this. We're looking at a multidimensional multiverse that has all the different possibilities, and we're looking at a quantum multiverse, which means that's one of the things that the Mike doesn't agree with. The physicist that you interviewed. He believes in the Einsteinian idea, the Aristotelian idea of a mechanical universe. This piece fits here, this piece fits there. And so because of that, we don't have free will. Everything is predestined and programmed out. And it's just one big clockwork working together, a big ass clockwork orange. Yay, let's go. Kill some Clockwork Orange. I don't know. That was a funky movie. I don't know if anyone actually.
One hell of a movie.
I love that movie. It's a very good movie.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually watched that like daily for about a year. I'm a sick, twisted individual.
I mean,
that makes two of us. Which is why what the Father does in my life, what I do, and the things that you hear of me doesn't come from me, because from me, I've got a machete. If somebody invades here, I got no problems. I'll finish them off. I'm not very merciful. I'm not very kind, and I'm not very gentle. I played American football, and one of the best things was whenever I could see that glimmer of hope, and because everybody, I'll just go right through that and I'll bust you through the wall. I'll make sure the wall breaks your head. I don't have to do a damn thing. Whenever people start a football game, they all start with the idea that we're going to win this thing. Yeah, we're going to be out. We're going to take them out. Yeah. And so it gets difficult because everybody's motivated and everything else. My favorite part of the game was when that brillo, the shine in their eye, disappeared. That instant when they start looking at the watch to figure out how long is left in the game, they knew they're already lost, that all hope is gone, and they're just waiting for the whole damn thing to finish. That was my favorite part, because that's when you just laid on the steam, you did whatever you wanted, you just ram shot right over them, and that was a lot of fucking fun. Yeah. However, the Father tells us that's not necessarily the best way to be. Because
talking about football, I wanted to jump in here. We touched on something earlier, and we were talking about how people will wear a mask or a veil in society sometimes. And I recognize when I was in football that when I put on those pads and when I put on those helmet, I went into a different mindset. I was a different person all of a sudden. I would act different ways than I would normally. I had a different.
You can't be normal on a football field. You'll get your shit run over.
True.
You got to be a soldier. You got to be a soldier, and you got to have your head on a swivel and suck up that loosh. I don't know what a loosh is, but all right, we'll get that one explained away. But Amun Raj, that's his Twitter. Sorry, not his Twitter. His Instagram handle.
Yeah,
Joey. Right?
Joey. Yep.
Joey. Yeah, it's okay. Because all right. So he was saying something, and we ended up interrupting him. But one of the things that I wanted to mention was that everybody wears masks. I mean, society requires us to wear masks. You can't be who you want to be, because people will somehow be offended by your essence. You have to get into this robotic mold of something that's socially acceptable. And that's not loose. Trying to figure it out. Oh, okay. Could be that. Yeah, the H and the E are really far apart. So I don't know where that. Don't know where that would actually appear at, but all right, hold on, because I'm trying to get into trying to catch that, but suck up that loose.
Here,
there we go. Loose spiritual energy. People who feel defeated are leaking it all over the place. It's also why the powers that be kept us in constant fear of one thing or another. Yeah, and actually, that's the loosh. Holy shit. Okay, so.
Well, we've been touching on that all night. The idea that spiritual energy can rub off on people, whether it's positive or negative.
Absolutely, it does. We are all energy.
Yeah.
No, it's a constant transfer. It's a give and take, and it's something that you have to imagine. You're leaving trails behind. It's something that you're rubbing off on your friends and family. And is that something that you would want to leave in their house? Is your presence something that's helping or hindering? Are you healing or are you hurting? And not necessarily to guilt yourself or to feel bad, but to look at yourself and to do your own work and to really analyze your place in your life and your role within your own life.
Oh, yeah. Know thyself.
Yes. Say, Penna, you say this all the time. Knowing your objective in life, knowing what you're here for.
Yeah.
Your purpose.
I kind of lost that a couple of days ago, which is why I was in a bad place. I ended up calling you for that Friday show, I believe.
Hey,
because I wasn't sure.
And I told you, hey, whenever you need to call me, if you want to go on a show and you want to do something, hey, I'm happy to accommodate.
And it was great. It was, Mud Rabbit actually showed up at the end, and we were already on an hour and a half and that sort of stuff, and we didn't keep up with that, but it was all right. Anyway, I would suck up the loosh. The problem is that the demons are doing that on the world, so it's a smorgasbord right now because everybody's shitting their pants out of fear, but because they're going to die from something that is survived by 99.98% of the people. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's the fear factor.
We did.
I'm just saying that the demons feed off fear. And
Yeah.
so they have always.
And I agree with you 100%.
into-
To have that negative mindset is detrimental to your own health alone.
Absolutely. But since
fear
when do demons care about your health?
And that's the gateway. If there's an opening, then they get in. But so in regards to strengthening oneself, and it's actually interesting because this is somewhat biblical in the way it reads, but it's actually Crowley. So I'm just going to do a quick little quote here. A Eucharist of some sort. You can't say
Crowley and biblical in the same phrase. That
I just did, and I'm somehow not on fire yet. A Eucharist of some sort should most assuredly be consummated daily by every magician, and he should regard it as the main sustenance of his magical life. The magician becomes filled with God, fed upon God, intoxicated with God. Little by little, his body will become purified by the internal lustration of God. Day by day, his mortal frame, shedding its earthly elements, will become, in very truth, the temple of the Holy Ghost. Day by day, matter is replaced by spirit, the human by the divine. Ultimately, the change will be complete. God manifest in flesh will be his name. And that's an empowerment that we just need to stand in, basically, to radiate those higher illustrious vibes. And
the problem that everybody uses the word God and they toss it around, and we got to be careful that it's big G or little g, because they're usually referring to little g and they use it as a big G. Why? Because those are theirs. They actually revere the pantheon. Okay, so that pantheon of gods, anytime that you take on, you model something, it will change your energy factor.
Yeah. And when we're talking about Aleister Crowley, I think he also has
this is so heavy. This is the heaviest of heavy. Like, has nothing to do with what I'm actually espousing. Let's get that off.
But no, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, when you're talking about Aleister Crowley, the other interesting point is his father was a minister. He rebelled from his family, so he does know God's word, and he tried to do whatever he could.
Satan, so did Lucifer. I mean, he was sitting, covering, God's throne, not protecting, but kind of just covering. And he rebelled, and he's the worst of the rebels. Actually, some of the worst Satanists were usually in religious organizations and had religious upbringings, and they turned their back on God. So then they have no limits. Because if they turn their back on him, they have none of those moral qualms and limits. They go off the rails.
I love this. You missed the beginning of the chat when I was talking about how my mom was a priestess in the Church of Satan.
Do what?
Repeat that.
I didn't hear it. That's why.
You missed the part in the beginning of the chat. I was talking about my spiritual path, and my mother, when I was a child, was a priestess in the Church of Satan.
Okay.
So it was quite a comeuppance, and that is to say, I had very little actual spiritual influence up until I was about 6. Then, when my parents were divorced, I actually started attending Lutheran church with my mom from when I was about 6 to 10. And I was very devout, actually. I was a very devout little Lutheran boy. So, I have an appreciation absolutely for Christianity, and even when I play handpan, actually, I feel sometimes this white light radiating from the handpan, and I feel this, it is a Christ energy that I feel coming through, and it's like a very healing energy. But I basically, my point being, though, is like, man, I have seen the freaking spectrum. I am the spectrum. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel that it's a healthy dose of this and that. And like I was saying, Crowley, this is some heavy shit. There's a lot of baggage that comes as soon as you unload that Crowley name. People are like, ugh, pedophile, racist. Okay, yes, there's a lot of badness. That
I
goes
don't.
with
I just go into the Satanist. Everything else just accompanies it.
I mean,
Being a
my
pedophile and a murderer and a thief and a liar just accompanies that same amoral reality.
With the fact
It's just
that
all the same.
my Scientology teaches me that L. Ron Hubbard also quotes and practices some of the same things that Aleister Crowley does.
They ran around together.
Yeah, they did.
They were buds.
They were
kind of creepy.
That's
That's why they influenced each other.
That was what was so interesting is when I was talking to the Scientologists that I've been talking to for the last 6+ years. In this, oh yeah, we'll have to get into that sometime, Joey.
Oh, yeah, you need to watch some of his episodes in the past. I know it's tough because our episodes are usually 3.5 hours long.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
Last night's 5.5, almost 6 hours long. Holy crap! It was 5 o'clock in the morning when I went to sleep, and it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. They were sending me work, and I'm like, "Oh shit!"
Oh yeah, no, I went to work 4 hours after we got off. It was a late night last night.
I woke up.
It was so good.
Yeah, I woke up 3 hours later, like groggy, disoriented, like thinking I had to be at work, but I didn't. Like, oh no.
Yeah, it's like kind of like where am I? When am I? You know.
Yeah, when it was really like, when am I? Like, no, I am literally 4 minutes late for work. Like, no, I'm not. I'm fine. I'm gonna go back to sleep.
Zachary Kim just asked a question. He said, "Jacob, do you remember Edwin in one of our interviews? Are you referring to Edwin as one of the time travelers that you referenced? Because you referenced quite a few. I'm not gonna lie. I would have to go back to pinpoint which ones." Luckily, Zachary Kim was nice enough to reference all the ones that we talked about in each interview. So if that's what you're talking about, feel free to jump in. Terry also said, let's see if I can pull this up. Do you mean Anton LaVey? Levy. Yeah.
Anton
okay.
LaVey was afterwards. He was influenced by.
So, story about Anton LaVey. He actually, my mom, as I said, was a priestess in the Church of Satan. My uncle was a priest in the Church of Satan, got my mom involved in it, and then he was kind of jealous because my mom is the one who actually got to fly to California to meet Anton LaVey. So she flew out to meet him.
Satanists being jealous. I mean, that's their whole base.
What an honor.
Yeah, right. Anyway, on with the story. So they pick her up at the airport, and well, actually, no, they didn't pick her up. She had to get a car to the house, and it was like a manor, right? And she like gets let in through the gate. Very like kind of very vogue. So she ended up having dinner with Anton LaVey and with his partner, mistress. I don't remember what her name was. Damien's mother. Damien at the time was a baby.
Life slave.
Yeah, right. Whatever the hell.
Was it kind of like eyes wide? Was it kind of like eyes wide shut type thing?
I think it was something like that, perhaps. Yeah, but it was unspoken. But so and then they ate dinner, and he actually played organ for her, and so that's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I've only heard.
Sure, let's bring in the Kool-Aid, and then we can just mention the current demon in charge of the NIAID.
Michael Quinto, might as well throw Jim Jones in there.
Yeah,
Michael
right.
Aquino. That's Michael Aquino, not Quinto. Aquino.
Oh, okay. Who is Michael Aquino?
Aquino.
I don't believe in any letters being silent.
Is that the Waco, Texas guy? Or
No. That's David Koresh.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was my red pill moment. When I saw that the government was able to do that, I'm like, and when I saw the actual videos of the flames coming out of the front of the tank that actually burned down the place, and I'm like, at that point, I had no trust in the government. Absolutely, from that point on.
People, and it's all because they were amassing ammunition because of the paranoia to protect themselves against the federal government, and then the federal government's like, well, shouldn't have been doing that. It's a fucking cycle. So I don't know.
It's just Satanists not wanting anybody else to cramp into their area. I mean, it's a total about control. Well, they kill anybody that's not involved. Just like we had another suicide today. It was the fourth one of the ones that responded on the 6th, right?
I gotta ask you, did you just see Marfool when they just went on? Did you watch?
I was watching Marfugel.
Yeah, Marfugel. Well, I get the notifications from Marfugel, so I was wondering if you just saw it. What was he talking about?
I was watching it when you called.
Without getting into anything that we can't talk about, what was he talking about? I didn't actually get to see.
No, I was just what he was talking. He was talking about, because he just got through shooting his documentary that he's been wanting to do for years about the Cascadia subduction zone. But his main thing was about China preparing to do a massive takeover of Taiwan, and all of the preparations that are leading to that, and some other stuff. But I was translating at the same time that I was listening, so I didn't pick up all the stuff. I didn't pay attention 100% to everything. But if you go onto his page, he's got all the articles that he was talking about. Couldn't be from 5,000. I wonder if we'll be around by then.
Oh, visited 5,000. Yeah, no. Let's see. Let's see here. He said, Edwin, one of the guys in one of your interviews is where you interview Michael McIntosh. He references Michael Phillips. Edwin. Okay. Yes, I do know who you're talking about. Edwin was influenced by Michael. Well, he had come across Michael's information in the past about Bitcoin, and Edwin talked about the things that that Michael helped him fall across. So yes, I do remember Edwin now. Yeah, thank you for the reference. I didn't remember it offhand. Too many interviews with Michael and too many Michaels. That's the other thing. Joey hasn't come across that, but there is at least 3 Michaels on our channel on a regular basis.
They have to have little nicknames.
No, yeah, which is why he refers to me as Pena Perspective. Sometimes he goes into the Miguel thing whenever I'm not on. A couple of times he's done it when I'm on. But just to make the differentiation.
I don't try to. So the other thing that somebody started referring to Mr. McIntosh as Mac, and I really do like that nickname, but I want to make sure he's okay with it. But yeah, it would be nice calling Mac and Mike and Mike and Mac and Michael and oh gosh,
it gets a bit confusing.
Yeah, I try my best.
Tell us what you were. Tell us what you were thinking about, Michael. Yeah, and both of us start talking at the same time. Yeah, that's fun. We had one to where we had 3 on at the same time. I think that was bizarre. But anyway, I was before I was talking about the Pantheon, and then I sort of got off track or whatever.
Mud Rabbit answered that question about who that Michael that we were talking about that she referenced. And he said he was a military officer, high-ranking Satanist.
They're all over the place, and that's the whole thing. We have the Antichrist spirit basically taking over the planet right now, which is why.
Yeah, and it's a big movement in. It's self-empowerment, but the thing is, it's angry and it's bitter, and there's this message of holding on to anger and not being able to forgive. But what people don't grasp is that that's actually not strength. That is literally weakness. If you like are holding on to anger and bitterness because somebody betrayed you in some way or another, get over it. Like, you are literally holding.
You're letting it drag you down.
You're holding on to hot coals. Exactly. You're letting it drag you down, holding on to hot coals. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? Stop making yourself suffer. The biggest thing.
It's easier if we just take 2 passages that say we must forgive, and 2, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. If we actually trust in those 2 phrases, we can actually we'll forgive others, not for our own benefit, because God wants us to. And that ends up benefiting us.
And that is karma. It's a different phraseology for karma. And let me make this connection here. So karma in Buddhism is called the light of the world. And Jesus is called the light of the world. And Jesus took the world's karma upon himself.
Yep. Yes, he did.
Okay.
It's all tied in and it's all telling the same story. The problem is that which perspective are you taking of the story? If you take the individual, I am, because the Bible also tells us that in the end times, people will be told that they are gods. But that's exactly what Satan told Eve in the Garden of Eden.
You will
You will be like God.
Yeah.
So it's the same lie from the very beginning. They just keep telling it over and over in different phases. And you're absolutely right. It's also said that people will take on a semblance of righteousness and forget about the origin of the righteousness, and they are lost and they lose the purpose. And that's where we get this woke freaking culture. I mean, they're trying to fix everybody else, but they're all angry little bastards. So there's no love in that. So it's all coming out of a dark place, which is why it generates so much violence, hatred, destruction, canceling, trying to destroy somebody's life.
I think
that's what demons do.
When you're talking about that culture, I think the biggest thing is to know that if you actually want to make things easier on yourself and explain to people how you feel about things, the worst way to go about it is to tell them that you're wrong for thinking the way that you think.
Yeah.
And rather than finding a middle.
They're wrong, but they have the right to be wrong.
Yeah,
that's what free will is all about.
If you're actually trying to relate with people and actually get a positive feedback from it, which I don't think that's happening, I think the best thing to do would be to try to relate with those people on a middle ground.
Yeah, no, we live in the digital age, and so we should be able to accept new information from people and be able to integrate this into our life, and as you said, kind of find this middle ground and a compromise, and say, okay, well, perhaps this is what you think, this is my perspective, and we'll see. Perhaps
how about this? It's 6:30 at night, about 7 o'clock at night. You're hungry. You got the idea that you want a pizza because you've been tasting that pizza in your mouth all day because your stomach's just grumbling and you're going right. So you know how to get to the pizza place. Mm-hmm. But as you're going to the pizza place, your Google Maps takes you to a burger joint, to a spaghetti warehouse or whatever. Then it takes you over to a macaroni grill. It takes you to places that you don't necessarily want to go. They're important. You need to know them. They're good places, but that's not what your objective was. Your objective was a pizza parlor. And so when you have all these different detours, you're still going to be hungry because you didn't get your freaking pizza.
I like that.
You know what's interesting? We were talking about Neuralink and the separation between nature and mechanics and where we're kind of headed in our future. And I think that's one of my biggest things that I think that we're going to see in something like Neuralink is basically you're going to drive by a McDonald's and all of a sudden you're going to think about McDonald's. You're going to get a thought pattern that they could literally pay to
pay for you to
be their form of advertising in the future.
That's the issue. Is it's not a one-way street. Is how far are we going to push privacy rights?
Now, my question is this: once they get in there, it's no longer a two-way street. It's a one-way street.
True. They're putting it. What you're saying?
Your will no longer be yours. The AI system will hack your brain, and everything that you think is your thought will actually be theirs.
Even if they can't get that far, regardless, there's going to be so much influence. Whether it's because we already have this. If
it will be a hive mind, it will literally be a hive mind. Everyone will think alike. Your individuality will be
the way that you're programmed to think.
It's the way that you're programmed to think. It might not be that everything is synchronous, where everybody gets off at the same time and has the same program, the same schedule. But you're programmed to consume, and so it's just disgusting.
Well, we're already programmed to consume. It took me 10 fucking years to get out of that consumer mentality when I came down here, because everything about our programming in the U.S. is buy. You got to feel good so you can buy things. So the only reason that you work is so you can feel good because you need more money to buy more shit. Exactly. And so you slave away to make yourself feel better. But do you actually feel better? Does all the garbage actually work? No. Now, my wife keeps wanting me to throw away old junk. I'm wearing shirts that I bought 30 years ago. I don't like throwing stuff away because why? because I'm not into accumulating stuff. So the stuff that I have for a reason. The stuff that I have is stuff that I like.
And it's good enough, right?
Well,
Exactly. And if I throw it away, I have to buy something else, which means that I have to work more to buy something else. So it's just like
my favorite all-time reference. I'm a material girl, and this is a material world. I got to catch up the chat a little bit. Zachary Kim, he said, you guys should do an interview with Edwin, Mr. McIntosh, and Mr. Pena.
That'd be a good one with Edwin and Mr. McIntosh. I wouldn't necessarily have to be on that one. I got nothing to do with time travel. It interests me.
And I have a feeling
I've got no input on that.
With Edwin and Mr. McIntosh, we usually end up talking about Bitcoin the whole time. And because Edwin's also interested in Bitcoin. He learned from Mr. McIntosh.
Oh, hell.
McIntosh.
Even when McIntosh and I are on, we talk about Bitcoin the majority of the time.
Yeah, I try to gear away from conflicts in conversation, and it's also kind of detrimental to have 4 people on at once because nobody can get a word in edgewise. It gets a little complicated. But Zachary Kim also said, I had a classmate named Michael. I assume a lot of people did. Yeah, it's a popular name.
I had many classmates named Michael, not just one, but many.
I had a friend of mine in high school who he was Michael. He liked to call himself Mike. But he wanted to be different because there were so many Mikes and Michaels everywhere that he decided to spell his name Myque. Mike.
Why not, man?
Michael.
Let's not go down there. I had a pastor that couldn't pronounce my name for the love of God. And so at one time, I mean, it's okay. The Miguel stuff I heard all the damn time, and it was bothersome because
wasn't that actually your birth name? Because when I met you, you were going by Miguel de la Pena. You weren't going by Michael.
Well, that's a more complicated story. I got onto Facebook really early, and I got banned from Facebook really early, and I went back to Orkut, where everybody here in Brazil was. And then everybody here in Brazil started going to Facebook, and I'm like, well, shit. They wouldn't allow my email anymore because if you'll look up Michael de la Peña, you'll find my profile, but it's like 12 years out of date because I haven't been able to access it for 12 years or more. So I had to put in the Miguel. Now, whenever I went down to Mexico all the time, I loved them when they call me by my name, my given name, Miguel. But the reason why my mom chose that name is because it could be translated into any language. After all, it is, the Archangel Michael, which is translated into every language on the planet. In French, my name's Michelle. But if you call me Michelle, I'm gonna have to fucking bitch slap you.
Michelle, my belle. These are words that.
Then you've also got Mikhail Gorbachev, which is the same name. Then you have, it's translated. Mikkel is in German as well. I had a German friend of mine that was telling me that one.
Micah L. Yeah.
But that's he who is like God.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because the L is the elevation. Raphael.
He who is like God of God, right?
The Father anyway. Why? Because he's his protector. But he doesn't use his own strength. Any time that he would be in a battle, he would say, "God rebuke you," not using his own strength and his own position. He's an archangel. He's powerful as all get out. He can do anything he wants, but he never uses his own power because it is not. He recognizes that his power is not his. It was given him to him by the Father, his creator.
Right.
Why? Because these beings were created much before man was. So that's where we get into all the alien species and the billions of years of evolution of this star system. But there are star systems in other places that are billions of years older.
You think that's from the fallen angels?
Huh?
You think that's from the fallen angels?
I think angels are extraterrestrials. I think fallen angels are extraterrestrials that came here and couldn't get back out because they weren't allowed back into space. We are on a prison planet. Why?
Because I
Because
also believe that that's the depictions of like Goliath and the Cyclopses in Greek times. I think that is also the
going
gods.
to Gen 6 productions. He tells those stories a lot better. But yeah, they are real. They let's see, Gen 6 productions.
I'll pull it up.
Alberino is one guy, but anyway, there was a.
I want to know what you think about zoo theory before we get too far off of this, because you were talking about how we live on Prison Planet.
What theory?
The zoo theory.
Zoo.
The zoo theory, essentially, that we are is sort of like an experiment, and we're here for observation.
We are here to observe, because, like I was saying in the beginning, the quantum multiverse becomes this big nebulous cloud of everything. Everything's in that, and all of the possibilities are there. And you see all those things. He sees all those things at the same time. And so it's hard to get an actual definition of anything, because they're all real and they all exist at the same time. All times exist at the same time. So the ability to actually enjoy creation is us. That's why the Spirit has to be in us, so that he can see the world through our eyes, so he can see the effect of the love, and for us to appreciate and thank him for the things that he made for us. Because it is only through our eyes that we can actually see this particular time and this particular place and this particular reality and perspective.
If a tree falls and no one is around, does it make a noise?
Yes, it does.
Well, no, but I'm just saying that's a beautiful parallel, because we are the observer here, and we're just testing it out. We're like, well, what's in this world that I made? Like, we are,
yeah, well, we're actually testing ourselves out. Yes, that's the channel, Jake. Now that Alberino, he was actually a student of the guy who started the Gen 6, and that's whose name I was trying to remember. Great guy. I've watched so many of his videos. Actually, if you go onto my page and you get favorites for the book, it's got 500 videos in there that I've watched, because they're all ones that I put them in there whenever it's something that has to do with what I wanted to put into my book. And so, yeah, he talks about the giants and everything else. Yes, it's real. And that is the antediluvian world. That is the world before the flood, the world that caused the flood. In fact, they would actually say that the flood was caused because of all of the genetic changes and alterations. Man wasn't like that anymore. So there you got favorites for the book. That's right below that. And so there, in the first one, I put that one first because we always have to put God first. The second one, because I'm into quantum physics so much, so we actually see how the wave function breaks down, and that's what creates the material reality. But if we can get into that, but there's like 500 videos in there. You're not going to be able to see all of those, but somewhere in there was the guy's name, and so I'll have to double check that.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll just take you too long to do that. But yeah, you see there's some good videos in there to look at. So it's not just the videos that I make.
I like that you got Brett Weinstein in there.
Yeah, that was an interesting take. Now, I watched a couple of his, and he's too. Oh yeah, he's a scientist and all that kind of stuff, but he's too Cartesian. He's too far in. He doesn't believe anything metaphysical, spiritual, or anything else. He is completely material. And yeah, but that's a limiting view. When we don't consider spiritual forces, the energies that abound in this world, then we are basically, it's like considering the universe without dark matter. Considering dark matter is like 96% of what the universe is, you're overlooking a lot of things that can actually have an influence on what you actually do. So that's kind of where I got into those energy points. The problem is that you have the adversary who's been here for a very long time, and he's been programming the human culture and psyche for. Good night, Mud Rabbit. Yeah, it's 1 o'clock your time. So thank you very much. Appreciated you being around.
Fantastic questions. Yeah.
Somebody was going to say something. I'm going to continue rambling then.
Oh no, we said thank you, and he said fantastic questions.
Okay, cool, excellent. Then Mud Rabbit's always good at it. She's got some good input as well, not just.
Gosh, I wish we could get Mud Rabbit on here with us.
And then she answered that moi because she
right.
Because the energies influence us because and one of the pieces that finally fell is because I'm really into Nikola Tesla as well. Now he also had external influences that allowed him to understand the things that he understood, and so sometimes but he's also been cast in a dark light by the ones who run this world who didn't want his information out there. And so whenever we see
like the Trump family,
hold on,
you know that connection? Come on, give it to me.
Yeah, I know. We'll get there in a minute.
We'll get there in a minute.
Actually, we probably won't, but making Trump seem just like Tesla, no. Tesla was well beyond that.
No, I'm talking about the family that obtained
and I understood about Trump's uncle, who was an MIT professor, and he was given access. The FBI called him in to, take a look at what they had confiscated from Nikola's place. And he had access to that, and he actually told his nephew, which is his favorite nephew. His nephew spent a lot of time with his uncle, and I'm sure he learned a lot of things from him. And now Don's kid, Baron, now we have a book that was written in 1853, I think.
Baron the Time Traveler, Baron? Is that who you're referring to?
Well, obviously, but his dad's a time traveler as well.
Well, obviously. Come
on. The Last President, then there were two books that were actually written in there. Baron
what
von Trump.
What makes you think Donald's a time traveler? I can see the theory behind Baron Trump, but what makes you think Donald is a time traveler?
All of this is
reasons,
whoa.
One of the reasons why he decided to run is because he saw the future outlay of being a nuclear holocaust, which is exactly what Hillary wanted. They were setting everything up for World War III being a nuclear conflict because they wanted to wipe everything out. That's what freaking demons do. And he didn't like that idea for humanity because in the end, Don's a good guy. He likes people. He treats people well. Okay. There are so many stories of him giving people money for what they needed and doing it, without letting anybody know. There was one time somebody couldn't get an impoverished person, inner city black man couldn't get a loan for anything. And Don says, all right, put in your paperwork and everything else. I'll kind of co-sign it and make sure that you can pay it off and responsible and all that kind of stuff.
So
the guy comes in to pay Don back, and Don says, no, I don't want your money. Here's your paper. It's yours.
You gave two interesting references, and they make me want to address two others.
Go ahead.
What do you know?
Thing as well, so continue.
What do you know about Trump University, and do you think it was created with good intention?
It's kind of like the guy of Virgin. The first guy the first billionaire to make it into space. He beat Jeff Bezos to the punch.
No, I'm talking about Trump University.
The university. I'm getting to that. See, there was an interview that he made about 20 years ago, and they asked him because he had back when Virgin Atlantic started, and then he's got Virgin Galactic, and he's got Virgin Records, and Virgin this and Virgin that, and he's got 43 different,
like a Virgin.
43 different companies, all named under his Virgin umbrella. And they asked him, but how can you do so many different things? Do you know all these things? He says, I don't have to know these things. I just have to know who knows how to do them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Finds the people to do it.
Every builder knows that.
It was an excellent idea. I mean, he saw that universities can charge whatever they want. Inflation has been through the roof for education and medicine in the United States.
So do you think he was trying to educate people?
He was trying to sell a product because he makes money. Okay, that's what he does. He builds buildings and he makes products that people will buy. Some of them work out, some of them don't. It depends on who's in. And universities, it takes a long freaking while to set those things up. When universities don't go, a good university doesn't, and he doesn't like to do anything half-ass. It's either the best or he gets out of it. And, so they rushed it. It ended up being a bad job, and the people that work for him did a fucked up job, and he had to declare bankruptcy. I'm sure that they tried to teach people things, but I don't believe it was a scam. I just believe it was one of the businesses that didn't work out. Now, anyone who's a businessman knows that there are businesses that don't work out. It doesn't make you a bad administrator.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Great answer. The other one you
really
referenced.
Put a bad twist on it.
Go ahead.
Say that he's a fraudster. Oh well.
So real quick, something that a lot of people don't know about Trump, and people like to throw out the blanket term racist about him. And for the record, I am not a Trumpster. I voted for Bernie twice. I would just like to point that out. So anyway, Trump though, this was back in the 90s.
He's proud of being okay. That's okay.
Yeah, no,
I like Bernie, and I defended a lot of his positions because after all, I'm a Trump fan because it's Trump. Okay. I'm not a Trump fan of Trump because he's a Republican.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. So and I'm a Bernie fan because of the stances, because he's held these stances for so long, and that's exactly
up until Hillary pulled the rug out from under him, and then
I agree. I agree with you, Michael, that I don't think Bernie has enough backbone to run for president, and that's actually what pulled me away from Bernie support.
The thing is that he's corrupt. He has 3 mansions, and now he doesn't talk about the millionaires and the billionaires. Now he's only talking about the billionaires and the trillionaires because he's a millionaire, so he can't throw himself under the bus. That's the whole.
It's funny because he's always that same guy that's going to pull out the calculator to make sure he tips at 10% exactly, rather than giving somebody a little bit more than they deserve.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true.
But that's whenever you're thinking about yourself and just doing what's right. Then it's all calculations, and it's not coming from the heart. And that is what doing things right.
If you're
it has to come from the heart.
Yeah, and it's a matter of not letting the left hand know what the right hand is doing, right? And yeah, exactly. So, but back to the Trump story. So, Trump was, I believe that he was. I'm not sure if he had already started the golf club or if. Yes, this is actually what it was. So people were golfing at his club, and they were golfing with people who were Jewish and people who were black. And then those same members went to go golfing at other clubs. And
the black members weren't allowed to go in.
No, not just the black members. The white members of the clubs weren't allowed to play at these other clubs because they played with black people or because they played with Jews. They were barred from playing at these other golf clubs. So what Trump did was he turned around and sued all of them, and he won.
Yep.
And people never talk about
it's funny people call him a racist, but there's pictures, to where you've got this entire group of black people back in the 80s that were elevating him as a grandiose, fighter for.
Trump, it used to be cool. Like.
And he helps people of all. He's really like Martin Luther King Jr. to where he looks the content of your character versus the color of your skin. Okay, if you're white but you're a fuck up, he's going to treat you like garbage. Why? Because he doesn't put up with bullshit, and that's what we saw in the show The Apprentice, which I so much wanted to be on, but I never got to that point. I wanted to be on The Apprentice so much. I knew he wasn't going to say you're fired to me. I mean, fuck that shit. But that's the whole point. If you're a fuck up, you got to be fired. Because that's the whole thing. You got to do shit right. Otherwise, don't fucking do it. And that's why he is where he's at. Now, there are other people that they get where they're at by fucking up over other people. Now, do people get the shaft by Trump? Yeah, sometimes, and that's what contracts do. That's what business is, and the shaft means that they just lost in a normal business deal. It's not that it was necessarily negative or abusive or anything else. Contracts are contracts. You read the contract before you sign it. That's how you know what's in there. And if you don't like what's in the contract, you change the freaking contract. That's why I don't like that, freaking demon witch Pelosi that says, sign it and then we'll figure out what's in it.
Hey,
What the hell? You never sign something before reading what's in it. I mean, that's just twisted and corrupt.
This is the stuff I was talking about that I had to cut out before. Don't talk about Demon Pelosi. Don't talk about Hillary. Don't talk about don't reference reference political
the political
opponents in a negative way for the sake of argument.
That's true.
Because the demons run the show and they don't allow anybody to say anything.
No, because there's other points of view.
Well, I mean, it's true in the sense that you can't talk about these things on YouTube, regardless of
because demons run the show.
I mean, that's the kind of perspective.
You know the history of
okay, so
you know the history of those sisters, 23 and Me? Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember when we were on the show yesterday, and one of the guests that was on from Birdhouse was trying to say that Trump was a racist and that he didn't want people immigrating into America?
Yeah, I know. There were
there was a reason I muted him and corrected him, because I don't like false narratives proposed about anybody, regardless of it's our current president, our past president, anything. It's public knowledge that his complaint was about illegal immigrants. Yep. And I know that media wants to twist it in every other which way. And I'm not a Trumper. I'll never pretend to be. And this is where I blow everybody's mind. The first election, I voted for Andrew Basiago. Second election, voted for Kanye West. And I was like, well,
dude, Kanye's awesome. I like Kanye.
Well, and that was my thing. I was like, out of all of these candidates running, I was like, between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I was like, who's the least racist? Like, Kanye West. Like that's quite clear to me, because, and that brings me back to my other reference I was going to bring up when you talked about how he helped.
He's not racist.
What's that?
Because he's black, he's not racist. Is that it?
No, I think he's least racist publicly than the other two. That's
his personality versus his skin color. Because for that,
it has to do with the ad that the Trump family pulled out on the 5 black members in New York, and then it has to do with the blatant speech coming from Biden when he was in Congress. I mean, he casually used the N-word like it was no other. And I can't support anybody that does that, me personally.
Oh, but poor kids can be as good as white kids.
Stop. I know where you're going.
That is his phrase. That is his phrase. What does that automatically?
I don't want to talk about popcorn, Cocoa Puff, and his ice cream socials.
But I do want to talk about popcorn because the storm is here. Did you see the woman get arrested for embezzling $964,000?
Well, when Rumsfeld gets in trouble for never mind. Now, when Rumsfeld gets in trouble for the money that we lost on 9/11 and that everybody swept under the table because Rumsfeld said
the money we lost. Well, how about if he gets charged for 9/11?
All the gold in Building 7. Where'd all the gold go?
The gold in Building?
It wasn't necessarily the gold. It was all the documents that proved stuff.
I never heard about that. There's gold in Building 7.
Gold is already gone before it went down, but what they destroyed were the documents that were leading up to prison time for the people that did many bad things back in '63. Okay, and that's why the Pentagon, the part of the Pentagon that was hit, was actually the Naval Investigations Office, which is where half their documents were as well. They were covering their ass, is what they did.
I don't understand
documents. Yeah,
I don't understand the crash site at the Pentagon.
Dude, it's so sketchy. It's so
confusing.
sketchy.
I'll just say it's
So
confusing.
it's like the FBI went
confusing.
in and they've collected everybody's videotapes of anything flying through, so that nobody could actually tell that it was a missile versus a plane.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if it was a missile or a plane. I just know that there's
It's
some
confusing.
very strange sliding tracks going into
And
the
wreckage,
going
no
into a
bodies,
hole.
no shoots, no hole.
Oh no, the whole thing disintegrated on impact.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Is like
No
it's
black
like,
box,
it
no
goes
anything.
into, like it's like this trail into crater of destruction, basically. It's
very
like
interesting.
and
to say the least.
like wonder what
And
that
the
was.
world changed that day. And so who says that Prince wasn't right? We got to party like it's 1999. Because in 2000 was the last year that we had as a normal civilization. 2001 changed
It was
everything.
Yeah, there's pre 9/11 and post 9/11, and it was all changed. I mean, they
Yeah,
changed.
Tiffany, I ran out of popcorn. I've been eating the popcorn for a year and a half, waiting for, the movie.
It
Because
changed everything. The ability to easily go from one place to the next. It's the control of people.
take off your shoes. Why? Because some idiot. I mean, and how many people? You can't take in a water bottle because it might have something. It's like the trust in individuals left at that instant, and because we can't distrust a group of people that naturally and innately do that freaking crap all over their region, but we got to distrust everybody.
Every single person.
Everybody is possible of doing that.
And
That's
now
some
everyone
bullshit.
everyone now feels distrusted. It's not that it's not that we don't trust. It's that we actually feel that we are distrusted. And
We are distrusted.
Well,
The government isn't
but we
for
are
us. The
identified.
government is against us now.
Yeah, and we identify as that, and that's not wholesome. That's not a wholesome place to be.
If we've got video cameras on every street, why don't we have video cameras inside telling us what the politicians are doing? Because they're the ones who should actually be under the freaking microscope. They are our employees. We're not their serfs and servants.
So let me give you guys.
We need to be in charge of what they're freaking doing. Their lines need to be tapped. All their information needs to be public. Everything. Their entire family needs to be audited because what these people do along with their families is freaking disgusting.
We pay them, and then they create contracts and hire Billy Boy, their cousin, who does a shitty job. So then they hire Billy Boy the second to fix the job. I mean, it's just this whole. It's
never fixed the job. The job's never meant to be done because as long as it's not done, they still have a reason to continue the contract, and eventually, we'll get it done sometime. And in the meantime, it's cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
Yeah.
I want you guys
and we're
to
23
ponder
trillion in debt because of these assholes.
I want you guys to ponder this perspective. Because I don't know if you guys have all experienced this. So I've gone to jobs before that I've applied for where they have a 90-day trial period where you are usually with another company until you get hired on full time.
Yeah.
I want that from a presidency.
We might do that with this president.
If you don't fulfill what you're promising in your in your election campaign.
None of them have.
Well, the thing is that you can't.
Trump,
make us a promise.
Let's be honest. Trump didn't fulfill everything in his.
But he fulfilled a lot more than what any other politician ever did.
He did do a lot. I will give him that. He did do a lot, and he made.
But most of them just promise a bunch of shit and they do the opposite.
Well,
but like I said, I always address the realities of it. He did make the economy one of the best economies we've ever seen.
But
he was finishing that wall.
He shit on the environment though, and allowed corporations to shit on the environment, so everyone's 401k.
And this is where I think I have a disconnect with some people. I don't think he shit on the environment. What I think he did is he deregulated
the EPA, which was corrupt and twisted as well.
Well, I think he deregulated some of the hoops that they had to jump through, and I think it actually made it easier for them to operate.
Yep.
I actually don't think he gave away land, anything like that.
He defunded the DNR, the Department of Natural Resources.
Yes, he did.
Because they were interfering with farmers being able to do their job.
What's that? They were interfering with farmers.
They were
That's the
interfering with
EPA.
farmers and others.
No,
They
that's
couldn't
the,
actually
that's
do
the
anything.
that's the EPA, not the DNR. Those are different organizations entirely. The
Yeah.
EPA is what has to do with wetland preservation when wetlands form within fields of agriculture.
Yeah, that's one of the things they do, but they also put in so many hoops, regulations, and everything else to where nobody can actually do anything. It becomes more expensive to do things than,
And that's why I thought it was similar to the way that he limited government. I don't think we needed as many people involved in those processes that we actually had. And I think he limited it because he thought we were throwing more money at the problem than we actually needed to do.
That's the whole point of small government, because large governments are corrupt. Always. There's no way of getting around it.
Well, I think, and that's where I differ. I think humans are corrupt. And the more humans,
and the more power you give to a human for longer periods of time, the more he's going to fuck you over.
But I also think an individual can have just as much of a problem as a group collective.
The issue here is that we're budget balancing, and we're not like saying, okay, we're going to stop spending this money. We're not doing that. We're actually saying, okay, we're going to cut the funding here, and instead we're going to put it over here. So we're not actually ever making our deficit better, and instead we're just pissing somebody else off. Well, we're not going to pay for this. Instead, we're going to put this funding over here. And we're going to
use our golden hammer to make you suffer because we don't like you, but we like this other guy. So he's going to get the gold and you're going to get the shaft.
But then next time you guys can trade.
This is exactly how I was trying to answer Olivia's question last night when we were talking about when I brought up mental health in the U.S. She brought up mental health, and I addressed it as mental health in the U.S.
In the U.S.
Defunding and relocating the way that we support these programs. I don't think jail is going to help anyone with mental health.
No.
If anything, it might make
jail is also not going to help anybody with addiction.
Exactly. I think these are mental health issues that aren't addressed, and I think the defunding of these things are detrimental to society when it comes to a lot of the people that are in jail.
However, saying that something has to have funds because it has a nice name and you agree with the name and the objective of it doesn't mean that the people running it are actually doing what they're supposed to fucking do.
Well, yeah, that's the Bush administration in a T. Let's call it the No Child Left Behind Act. Let's call it the Fair Housing Act. Let's call it what it sounds great. But then when it comes down to actually reading what's involved in it, it's not what you
like the Patriot Act. Yeah, the Patriot Act was the most unpatriotic thing.
Talk about the Bush administration.
He destroyed 4 of our human rights in that instant.
In such a short period of time, like
that's why they needed 9/11 to happen so that they could militarize the country.
Well, I also think in the bigger scheme of things, 9/11 was used to nationalize the country and bring everybody together and support their government for whatever next venture they went on.
Which was their objective, to wipe out 5 countries or 9 countries in 5 years.
I don't know what their objective was. Besides, for me, it was a money grab.
Yeah.
For me, it sounded like
it goes beyond money. These guys, some of these guys have so much money, it goes beyond money. It's about power and control. Okay, they want the breeders and eaters to be in their little, just like the Vedic text. They need their monkey servants. Okay, and monkey servants don't have rights or voices or opinions or anything else. They're just there to serve you, to mine your gold, to do your things, and you sit there eating grapes and do that thing. So they're all about power and control. It's not about money. There was a director, a producer, who actually talked about those things in some interviews years ago. Maybe in the list of my favorites for my book, it's in there as well. However, lots of those videos have been taken down by YouTube as well. I go through that list and there are lots of blank spaces of things that I saved that aren't there anymore. So they control a bunch of fucked up shit.
I'll be right back, guys.
Just the fact that as long as he's gone, we can start talking about Harry J. Anslinger again. So the fact that the information
that racist bastard that didn't like blacks or Mexicans,
Yeah, exactly.
Where are we going?
Thank you.
Where are we
That's the
going? I'm
exact-
still here long enough to hear that.
No, that's the exact quote that I was going to bring up. And actually, if you try to Google that quote, you cannot find it. It is buried on Google, unless you know the direct.
You got to DuckDuckGo it.
What's that?
You got to DuckDuckGo it.
Yeah. Okay. I just heard about this, dude. This is synchronicity. I heard about this for the first time today, so I need to go.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I've been using DuckDuckGo for 3 years, ever since Luke Lewandowski told me about it. I'm like, okay, I got to check this one out.
This is like the second time I've heard about it in 24 hours, so I'm gonna check it out.
It's the go-to nowadays for people who know that they can't trust the big ones because they limit everything.
Yeah.
Why? Because there was an old phrase that the warmongering control freaks of the 1940s that caused the verbiage that we can't even use nowadays. I can't even mention the country because people will go, but he said that if you control what people see, you can control how they think.
Mm.
And so it's controlling the message, controlling the propaganda, making sure that they only see what you want them to see, and you will be able to program and control them much more easily. And fast forward 80 years, and that's exactly what they've been doing for the last 3 years. Actually,
and it comes full swing when you could bring it into commercialism and consumerism. We were talking about
they program us to consume so that we are focused on ourselves and not focused on all the garbage that they're doing.
Exactly.
You know, if I'm working 16-hour days so I can buy my BMW, I'm not going to have time to watch. I mean, I watch 16 to 18 hours of videos a day. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm supposed to translate and everything else, but there's a reason a student of mine called me Professor Google. Because anytime he had a question, I had an answer. Because I've looked into it, I've studied it, and that's the very first video on my channel is about that. I've seen all the stuff and I've read all the stuff, but okay, what is it going to die with me? And even in the Bible, it's written that knowledge will only last for 1 or 2 generations. After that, it's lost. You have to be able to integrate it somehow.
That's beautiful.
The tribe. Oh, the tribe. Okay, I didn't watch that one. I know about it, but I didn't watch it. But yeah, power and chaos, because chaos allows them to generate the power, because chaos generates the fear and people
and anger.
But when people are afraid, they're controllable.
Yes. Yeah.
They literally drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and the more that they drink it, the more they want to drink it. They become so scared of the other people that they will do almost anything they can to keep them as the other people. We're so scared of those people
and then we get into the reality that we have right now, to where the media is pushing a false freaking narrative of I even had my mom ask me, God, man, you just, between your Dr. Pepper and your little gummies,
you're killing me, man. I'm coming over.
I got to. I mean, I got you. Both of y'all are up in Illinois. I got to get my ass up there. I'm just waiting for all the shit show to actually fucking stop, so I can actually travel without committing suicide. I'm going to get some more water. I'll be right back.
Oh, you're fine. Excellent. So what did we do? What did we dive into while I was gone?
Oh my God! Basically,
we just dabbled and ran around in circles.
Yeah, we were running around in circles. We talked about freedom of information. Started talking about Harry J. Anslinger, and then we circled back onto consumerism, sort of, and how to break free of that cycle.
200 milligrams.
Dude, I had some 600 milligram candies the other day, and I was like, "Am I supposed to feel something?" I don't know. Edibles don't hit me.
All right, so I've had a lot of people tell me this exact same thing, and I have. I've tried out a lot of different edibles. And
what did I miss?
No, I was talking about edibles.
The inefficacy of edibles.
I would love edibles. I mean, when I was in San Diego, I got some really good grape ape, man. That was. I did not leave my hotel room that weekend. That weekend was just gone, man.
So No, let me finish this. Let me finish this thought of why I think he might not have felt his edibles in the past. So I'm very picky about my edibles. I think there's a lot of edibles that are made with a THC distillate where it's sprayed on top of any form of gummy or whatever the product might be. It actually has more of a chemical taste to it than what I like to get, which is oil-infused edibles, where I can actually taste the oil.
CD in there.
And the biggest thing that I think people don't understand about edibles is decarbing. If an edible hasn't been decarbed, it doesn't have the effectiveness that you think it does.
Well, your body is fighting to process it, and with decarbed, it doesn't have to do that. See,
exactly. It's already activated.
This is all
Y'all are teaching me stuff about my favorite habit. Holy crap! Okay.
Well, that's another thing I always try to tell people about edibles. Just because you smoke weed doesn't mean edibles are for you.
It's true.
I've had plenty of people from DeKalb that went to Colorado when it got legalized. My brother was a farmer out there for a while, and they got totally turned off THC and marijuana because the dispensaries were always showing people their edibles, and they weren't giving them the appropriate dose or explaining them how it worked. It's a whole different chemical reaction that happens in your stomach. Rather than
besides the fact that, if I have a tray of brownies, I'm going to eat all of them. I'm not going to eat one because that's not the content that I need. I'm going to freaking go off the rails. If I've got a bag of gummies, I'm going to be going.
Well, so just to give you an example, these are the whole package is 500 milligrams, which is a decent amount. Each piece is 50 milligrams, and there's 10 pieces. And
so those references, I got no idea of what they mean.
The average serving that you would get from a dispensary, if you were to buy like a THC pill, would be anywhere between 1 and 5 milligrams.
So it's
my
100
average
pills.
one is more like 10 times that, and that's the minimal. I think. And then the other thing is the dispensaries are so overpriced around here. I get something like
not
this.
Not just there, everywhere.
I get something like this for. What's that?
Especially here, though. It's especially overpriced here compared to.
Well, because the government's got to make their taxes off of something. That's the only reason they legalized it.
And it's
it's so damn expensive. Yeah. People are going back to their dealer on the street.
Yes,
they want to create the black market.
No, they want to destroy the
try to act like and try to act like marijuana is a gateway drug.
I know it's
process.
But
no, mushrooms are a gateway drug because it opens portals to other fucking dimensions.
Come on, get out
that's
here
the fucking gateway. That's the gateway, man. Holy crap!
Don't give them that leg up on that one.
Never have I done too many mushrooms and decided to do more drugs.
No, I'm not talking about doing. Actually, to be honest with you, the gateway drug is this one.
Opening the gateway.
Literally opening up portals. That's why I was talking about. But the gateway that leads you to other things, cigarettes.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Alcohol, sugar.
Alcohol is, alcohol and sugar is destructive. Holy cow, the diabetes that's going through, and everybody's because everything's full of sugar and salt. Why? Because our animal brain loves fat, sugar, and salt. Because when we were going hungry, those were the things that allowed us to keep going a little bit longer.
Now, yes.
So throughout a million years of evolution of the human body, it developed our lizard brain developed certain needs and tendencies, and that's those comfort foods, things that make us feel good.
They said, now I want hot brownies with ice cream, Divine Tiffany. They make edible ice cream as well, but edible ice cream is a slippery slope.
So we had a guest on our show.
Hot brownie a la mode. Now that I would be tripping on that one.
There you go. So good.
So we had a guest on our show by the name of Rocco Fowler, and he's done a couple other shows. And there's this guy named Big T that he was on a show with him. Big T and his THC cooking, and he does THC medicine cooking with everything from gumbo to clam chowder to anything you can think of. He does all these different recipes that are medicated recipes. So if anybody gets a chance, check out Big T's perspective, and he does a THC cooking show basically.
That's beautiful
for medicine and showing people how to infuse their medicine with the food they're already eating.
That is so beautiful. My a few friends of mine were talking about making breakfast one day, and they used some herb with their sausage, and the oil, the animal fat in the sausage, like brought out the THC, and it just apparently like got them ridiculously high. It's just
the problem with edibles is that afterwards you get the munchies, and so you go after your edibles, and it's a vicious cycle.
Exactly.
It's just
that's
a
what
vicious
I meant
cycle.
with the ice cream. That's what I meant. It's a slippery slope. You get so high and you're like, fuck, this is so good. I'm just going to keep eating more of this ice cream. And then you get like too high. And now, obviously, like I said, I don't really have this problem. I don't seem to get high off edibles. However, I could imagine that would be like, okay, now I'm too high.
So
I've been too high a couple of times.
When I'm cooking, I usually use the can of butter. I have a purple bud butter, and then I also have a honey butter. What's that? Can of butter.
Purple butter.
It's purple bud butter. So it's made from purple buds.
I'm gonna say, I mean, seriously, are we gonna be waving the rainbow flag now, man? Holy shit!
I don't have any butt butter. No, this is kind of what it looks like. It's,
I don't have any.
I also have I think virgin olive oil that's infused as well. Just depends on what I'm cooking and how you want to do it. But oh yeah, can of butter is the way to go if you're just going to infuse it into a recipe. I think it's an easy way to go.
Up and the heat actually releases it, and the butter is absorbed by the food, and
it's actually already activated. The butter is already decarbed. That's what we were talking about earlier with decarbing your edibles. The butter is actually already decarbed the way you cook it. And I yes and no, because you live in Texas.
However, it's legal in Oklahoma.
I mean, for me, it's more.
Have her set up a PO box in Oklahoma.
Well, for me, when it comes to marijuana, it's always been more of a trade thing. I'm not in it to make money. I'm trying to share good things with other people. If you're out to make money, that's when the government wants to get you. If you're literally just sharing things with people, they actually don't care as much, especially when it's a legal product.
Exactly. It's just if you're fucking them out of,
they'll start caring later on.
Oh yeah, especially when you start dabbling into the Food and Drug Administration side of it, and anytime you're giving out something that somebody would consume.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like they wanted to, use surplus fruit and vegetables and that sort of stuff to feed the homeless, and then they started complaining that you're trying to kill the homeless with rotten food. No, it's food that we don't eat. It's not rotten. They might actually eat it.
Panera gives out their day old bread.
Right? Come on.
Dude, we have French toast was invented to resolve the problem with day old bread.
Use bread.
No, you fry it in butter, put all kinds of cinnamon and sugar on it, and
it's
my son keeps asking me to make it because he loves French bread, French toast.
What back in the 1600s, 1700s? I mean, do you have any idea how many fruits people were eating in the winter that were preserved in these dry shelves and dry storage? And like some of them might have been like half gone, but they're still eating them, because if there's not mold on it, it's good.
I shared on Facebook a little meme that I ended up seeing that was eating styles of 150 years ago. And the fact that it was different phrases that we had. For example, people were so poor back then that back then, whenever they used to tan leather, they used piss to tan leather.
Yeah, urine. Yeah, literally.
And so poor people would actually sell their piss. And that's why they're called piss poor. Okay. And they had a little pot in their home that they would all piss in, and then they would sell that. But if they didn't even have a pot to piss in, they were even poorer than the piss poor.
Well, because then you're shit out of luck.
But then they went on to explain how the fact that why weddings are usually in June, because people would take their yearly bath in May. But since after a month you're already starting to stink a bit, that's why they've got the bouquet of roses to cover up the stink that was associated with the groom, the bride, I should say. So we have many of these things that happen from reality that we don't even. For example, my wife, if we prepare something and it's out of the fridge for 4 hours, she'll throw it away. Oh, it's already gone bad. And I'm like, seriously? No. I mean, then we got these stories of people would put stew into a water and they'd boil it up and they'd pull it out, and each day they just put more stuff into the water to make the stew. So sometimes you'd have stuff in there that was like 7-8 days old in that stew.
Well, didn't we talk about this? Like, that's the whole reason that something like meatloaf was invented. You literally are taking your leftovers from other days and turning them into another meal. It's this efficiency that you had to develop.
Hey,
so
it's
that you
called
had
hunger, man. When you're hungry, you got to do shit like that.
Yeah.
Well, and you're not going to waste your money on buying a meal and then throwing away your waste. Like, there's no reason.
The original trail mix was this Native American concoction of fruits, nuts, and literally like animal fat and tallow. And it was like a protein, nutrient-rich snack. It was like kind of nasty by today's flavorings.
Well,
but
most stuff 150 years ago was nasty by today's standards.
Nutrient packed, though. You're talking about, you've got your animal fats, protein, you have your fiber, you have all these nutrients from the
everything you need, and you can carry it along in a little satchel.
Exactly.
So you're riding on that horse and you're hungry, you just dig in there and start chewing off.
And then
there was another phrase from that.
Your loincloth and
exactly, and there was another phrase from that meme to where they mentioned that meat wasn't something that was easy to get, and so it was really noteworthy whenever the husband could bring home the bacon. And so they would hang the bacon there, and then whenever friends would come over, they would slice off a bit of the bacon and they would chew the fat while they were talking. And so we've got those phrases of bringing home the bacon is from back then, and chewing the fat is from back then. And when I was growing up, I'm like, what the hell does chew the fat mean? Now I know exactly why it is.
Hey, cut me some slack. Most people think cut me some slack. They're like slack rope, right? No. Cut me some slack actually refers to barrel making. So when you're making barrels and they're holding liquid, your boards that you're cutting need to be fucking straight. But if you're making barrels to hold dry goods, they don't have to be perfect, and that's called slack. Cut me some slack.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. The barrels. Oh, I was thinking barrel of a bang bang. Sorry, you're talking about the big barrels.
Oh, like a drum. Yeah, okay. Exactly.
You were talking about trail mix, and I had to put up my favorite quote when we're talking about trail mix. It's M&Ms with obstacles.
Well, I love peanut M&Ms, but I don't know what the opticals is.
That would be the pretzels and everything else that's in the way of just enjoying your M&Ms.
Oh yeah. Oh, obstacles. You wrote obstacles. But I guess
I put opticals on it. Sorry about that. Obstacles.
They are opticals.
Obstacles.
They're alluring.
Yes.
That's why I usually just get the bag of M&Ms. But nowadays I don't even buy M&Ms because they're too damn expensive for me down here. I don't know if meatloaf is awesome. I've never really enjoyed it that much, but yeah, I understand.
I love meatloaf, man. If you get if you do some of the rice, oatmeal, and then also do the panko breading, if you get that trifecta going, and then if you do the pork and beef combo.
The thing is that I don't like bread.
That's where I've got a sugar-free and carb-free recipe where I use pork rinds as the what's it called, breadcrumb base. Mm-hmm. And basically I have my carb-free version because I've never told you this, Joey. I don't usually consume any bread or sugar. And that's why I always thought it was interesting when you were telling me your story about the energy drinks.
Yeah.
Because I do have my own energy drinks, and I do have an addiction to caffeine, but I try to avoid the sugar side and the crash that comes with it sometimes.
It's definitely a major crash bill. And no, I
But I'm a chocoholic. I gotta have my chocolate.
Different strokes, different folks, dude. I mean,
Exactly.
it's all they're stimulants. They're all in the same family. So.
You pick your drug.
No, I don't like stimulants at all. Right? No.
Smoking on your.
No, between the beer and the smoking and everything else. It's self-medicating. It's a way of stimulating your serotonin levels.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing my self-medicating practice. I mean, there's a lot of toxic positivity, especially floating around. I'm mainly active on Instagram. And there's
I think the most negative thing about sharing your own experiences is telling people that your experiences are right for them. That's the only thing I find as a hurdle in life is telling anybody else that you have it figured out. That's the thing. I figured out what's good for me from trial and error, but I don't know what's good for everyone else. I couldn't tell anybody else what's good for them.
Exactly.
I know what's good for everybody else. You find your personal objective and you go after it. That works for everybody.
That's right. That's right.
Not everybody does it, and that's the thing. When I was in high school, college, and that sort of thing, there were these studies that mentioned that 5 to 10% of people actually wrote down in their journals and had their little to-do lists and that sort of stuff, and everybody else just went on going by. And normally, it's those same 5 to 10% of people that are successful in life versus the others are, their rowboat is going around in circles. So as long as you got it written down and you know where you're going and that sort of thing, it helps you keep on track. Where lots of people, they go out for pizza and they go off to the macaroni grill.
Yep.
That's just
set out for the pizza. Yeah. No, that's
set out for the pizza, but you ended up at somewhere else.
You were
the most amazing pizza place I've ever been to is called Cece's. It's a southern pizza chain.
No, they're in Dallas. We got Cece's all over the place. It's good stuff.
Yeah. It's one of the most amazing. That's the first time I've ever encountered a macaroni and cheese pizza. So I loved the reference.
It's funny.
But yeah,
Cece's was good. I had one there in
the buffet where it's all you can eat.
I just love this concept of we're going along with this river, but we're also kind of trying to find out simultaneously where the river is going.
No, people don't care where the river is going. They're comfortable floating down the river, but the problem is that most rivers end in a waterfall. So
yeah, you've said that. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, you cross the river because the river is between you and your objective. You don't cross the river and then get drug away by the river because it's not taking where you want to go.
Yeah, it's
taking you where it's going, but not where you want to go. And that's the thing about following society and following other people. No,
I love
you got to know.
That's the one thing. That's the one thing I have a problem with the river analogy. I feel like when rivers run naturally, there's a set path that they're going to cut. But is the river's destination set?
No, it's flowing.
No, it's not, and their path isn't set either because rivers constantly change. The bed is being shifted all the time. You don't see it because it's a short time frame. But if you do a time lapse over many years and everything else, you will see the course of the river change. Which is why
my best example as I could give is in New York. If humans stopped manipulating the land, the rivers would eventually take hold of their old routes. And we know exactly what routes they would go down. They might vary a little bit, but they have a set determined path that they would probably pursue.
So
it's not a set determined path. It's not like the river says, "Oh, I need to go here and I need to go there." Water goes down, and so whatever is easiest for the water to go to, that's where it's going to go. If there's a new route that the river can actually carve through the land because it's easier to get through there, the river will go through that point.
resistance.
The path of least resistance is water. And
Yeah.
I've had water infiltration problems because this place rains like nobody's business. So yeah, water goes anywhere it wants. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I'm going to bring it into this here. I have a reading from the Tao Te Ching again.
go ahead.
This passage is called Goodness. True goodness is like water. It nurtures everything and harms nothing. Like water, it ever seeks the lowest place, the place that all others avoid. This is the way of the Tao. For a dwelling, it chooses the quiet meadow. For a heart, the circling eddy. In generosity, it is kind. In speech, it is sincere. In power, it is order. In action, it is gentle. In movement, it is rhythm. Because it is always peaceable, it soothes and refreshes.
Yeah. I guess he didn't have too many tsunamis going on.
Well, you know,
Water's not so peaceable at that point.
may you live in
Hurricanes aren't that
interesting
peaceable
times.
either. Do what?
May you live in interesting times.
We are living in very interesting times. In
That's the
fact,
Chinese
many saints in the
curse.
past wanted to live in our times. The problem is there ain't much time left, hopefully. Because this shit show's got to end. I mean, these guys just want us all gone. But
Well, it's a matter of unity of humanity coming together, and really the technology that we have, it sometimes technology is a curse and sometimes it's a blessing. And this way we have communication and we can share ideas and spread ideas and kind of broadcast that love, you know.
But we can also broadcast the hate and fear, which
It's
is
true. It's
like
true, but the love is more powerful, though. The love is more powerful, and the light is more powerful, and the light is the source of everything. So,
But it's like we were talking about with everything else, Joey. It's that energy that you bring upon yourself, whether it's good or bad. That's what you reflect onto the world. That's what you carry around.
I am not what you think I am. I am what you think you are.
Okay.
you're going on that mirroring thing, okay? To where we mirror our expectations on others. That, however, is not my case. I don't mirror myself on anyone because no one can actually. I'm too fucked up to actually mirror on anybody else.
Are you sure?
Yeah, most likely. I'm just really bizarre compared to other people, and you guys are the ones that I can actually have a conversation with. If I get into a conversation with a normal person, I can't have the conversation because it goes sideways.
You say
it goes sideways real fucking quick. You guys aren't fucking normal, which is why I'm talking to you.
Well, we appreciate it.
I mean, normal isn't banging on the Caribbean drums. Okay,
Right.
Normal isn't somebody who's cut out sugar and carbs in an obese society. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
But whenever I talk to normal people,
so let's put it in vaguer terms. Cutting your own path isn't normal.
No. Most people prefer to be carried away by the waves.
Follow
It's
the
easier.
herd.
It's safer that way, they think.
It's safer, yes, but the world craves originality.
There are always anomalies, Neo. There are always anomalies. Yeah, Divine Tiffany, we crazy.
Tiffany agrees.
we be talking about some really weird shit.
It went from like Yahweh into 9/11 into
Oh yeah, we definitely. I mean, we've talked about a lot of things tonight. What are some of the other topics? We even jumped on sugar for a while. We were talking about that. We were talking about
Anslinger.
Yeah,
Anslinger. We were talking about Einstein for a moment.
You guys were talking about Einstein?
No, that was the previous one. Never mind. We're on part.
Well, we touched on it a little bit. Well, we've done
always have a tendency of touching on Einstein and Tesla.
Speaking of Tesla, I had a guy tell me, and this is hilarious. It really speaks to the intelligence of mankind. I had a guy tell me that Tesla is the Albert Einstein of our generation.
That's very.
Tesla's gone. How can he be the Einstein of our
Dude,
generation if he was
Tesla
living
died.
at the same time?
Tesla died 20 years before Einstein was born. Like, it
No.
killed me. It killed me.
No. Einstein and Tesla were alive at the same time. So much so that when they went to Einstein to ask him how he thought, how it felt to be be the smartest man in the world, he said, "I don't know. You'd have to ask Nikola Tesla." And then whenever they took Einstein's formula E equals mc squared to Tesla, to what are your thoughts on Mr. Einstein's formula here? And he goes, "It's interesting. The problem is that he has energy as the unknown, when in reality, mass is the unknown." And that phrase from Nikola Tesla is one of the ones that launched some of the basic precepts of my book, to where this isn't, mass is the unknown, because we live in the electrical universe. We are all resonance patterns. So we see it as mass.
I touched on this earlier, and you actually talking about what you're talking about, I'm really curious to hear your perspective. So we live in a Goldilocks universe where we have just enough.
We live on a Goldilocks planet.
Well, no. We live in a Goldilocks universe.
The universe as well. Our placement and the fact that we're able to exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have enough time that life can actually be created within a solar system inside the universe. So the universe expands, and if it was too massive, it would just expand and contract right away. But if it was not massive enough, it would just expand, and then experience this big freeze. And
see, those are the competing theories of either the big crunch or the big freeze that physics is trying to figure out. Because after all, Einstein believed that the universe was fixed; it wasn't expanding, or the stars were where they were, and they didn't move. Later on, they found out that everything was expanding, and then they talked to him about quantum theory, and he's like, "I don't think God plays dice. God doesn't play dice. God knows all of the answers. The ones who are playing dice is us. We're the ones playing dice." Because that's where I differ from Mike's perspective, the physicist, to where if everything's mechanical, you don't have free will, because it means what you're going to do is a result of the pieces that pushed you where you needed to be.
Going to a finality, yeah.
However, if we live in a probabilistic multiverse, then we have free will. Because we can choose.
So expanding on what you're saying right there, let me jump into what you're saying right there. So if we live in a multiverse, and all the other branching multiverses are all alternative decisions that we made, do we actually have free will, or is each universe set on its own course, and other opposing universes are opposite courses?
Oh,
you have free will
because by nature there is the dichotomy of choices,
and the only dichotomy would be a parallel universe or an alternate.
All the choices possible are a reality on one time frame or another. Now, where I talk about free choice, free will, is that you are in your time frame as a result of your particular decisions. Another version of you could have made some other decisions, and they are in another universe, multiverse, but they are not you. Even though they're called Jacob, they haven't made the same choices as this Jacob. There might be an extremely obese version of Jacob who decided that carbs and sugar was his trifecta. Okay, those little decisions that we make, those are what lead us to where we are right now. Okay, I could have chosen to take on debt and study at MIT, and I would be nowhere near where I am right now. I would be somewhere else, and that was a very big possibility, and something that has haunted me to this day. 30 years later, I'm still regretting the fact that I didn't take out a loan and get that freaking education. But at the same time, I wouldn't have my kids, I wouldn't have my forest, and I wouldn't be living in the house that I'm in right now, which I personally love. I mean, I've been in this town for 24 years, but to be honest with you, I've been in this house for 20. And the reason that I didn't go back to the States and everything else is because I didn't want to leave this house behind. That's the whole thing. Because I couldn't get a reality like this anywhere else. Okay. First of all, even if I had the money to do it, things don't grow the way they do here because they need water and sun. And here there's lots of freaking rain and lots of sun. And so there are things that I can have here that I wasn't able to have anywhere else. And so there are things that you know, you need to contemplate what was the best choice or not. And sometimes we need to know that God already knows what our choices are going to be for each one of the multiverses, which is why when they asked Jesus, when is the end? He said, no one knows the end but the Father. Why? Because the end depends on what freaking timeline you're on. And the timeline depends on the decisions that each person took on those particular timelines. So there's a timeline to where it ends in 2000. There's another one where it ends later on.
That leads back to my question. Do you think these timelines, you're actually making decisions on them, or do you think each universe and each not universe reality is meant to go down its own path of being opposed to another one?
I personally believe in predetermination, and that's actually, I'm like a total hippie dude, but I still actually do to a certain degree believe in predetermination because you can't necessarily have free will when you have endless permutations of choices and an all-knowing God.
You have free will because you make the choice that you make.
Yeah, but who made me? And who made those choices? And I agreed to be here. I manifested. I chose to be here.
That's the thing that I'm writing in my book. Before you're born, you sit down in God's lap and you define your life. The problem is that we forget all that conversation when we come here, and we have to make the decisions to get to that point. We don't necessarily reach that ultimate destiny that we had. There are many people that are frustrated at the end of their life because they didn't reach their destiny because they made their own choices. It's free will. After all, if we believe in Jesus Christ, it is a choice. If we don't believe in him, that's true. That's also our choice.
That's where the round two, the go again, comes into play, is forming, if you have some sort of an attachment, whatever it is. I actually wanted to talk to you about your perspective on the afterlife because you seem to have a certain finality or permanence to it, whereas I do tend to ascribe to the wheel of samsara belief in a cycling sort of.
You're into the reincarnation thing.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of have a balance of both of you. I believe in a cycling thing until you can reach a heavenly point, until you can reach that higher plane of existence.
That's exactly what the theory of reincarnation is, because you keep improving and eventually you become an enlightened
being. You don't necessarily keep improving. You can take steps back, you can take steps forward, and you might be constantly stuck in that cycle for your whole existence. It doesn't necessarily mean you progress.
There's a point when existence ends, and if you weren't able to get out of those cycles, then you're recycled.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's because we are all one, it's not going to end until everybody leaves, and that's where the bodhisattva comes in. The bodhisattva is the enlightened one who stays behind, who basically the bodhisattva, let's bring it into the allegory of the cave. The bodhisattva is the guy who's like tapping everybody on the shoulder, and it's like, hey, you know you're looking at a wall and you know you're looking at shadows, right? Like the show is behind you, and actually not only is there a puppet show going on, but the light is coming from outside the cave. Like, let's go out there. So that's the
problem is that if you continue reading the allegory of the cave and the conversation that Plato had with others about that, and the ultimate thought pattern that he got is once you get out of the cave, you stay the fuck out of the cave. Because when you go back into the cave, they will beat the crap out of you because they're very comfortable with the cave. Because what happens when he went back into the cave, he couldn't see anymore because it was too dark. His eyes had to adjust. And so the people inside the cave thought that, going outside is going to blind you, so it's a bad thing. Quit telling us to go out there. You want to kill us all. Fuck off. And they tie him up in a corner or beat him to death because they're not going to leave their cave. It's comfortable there, and they create this image to explain what they're seeing, because humans are really good about that. We, like right now, we have no idea if there are multiverses, if there is other time, if there is something after this life, because we haven't experienced it. So they are all mental exercises.
Yeah.
Now,
Just
in the end, we've got what my dad, my wife, and my uncle always keep telling my freaky ass. Okay, all those ideas are interesting. How does that pay my bills? It's all got to come back to how do you make it useful for you? And that's where the Bible, I mean, because I've studied all those things. I got into the Buddhism and the Tao and the Vedic text and everything else because I wanted to know. But I came back to the base that I had. Why? Because because Tao was great and very deep and very meaningful. But if you actually put those things into a reality of 7.5 billion people and the reality that we're in today, it sort of breaks down because it's very good for small villages and small kingdoms and small realities.
No,
if you
society comes
expand that,
crashing down at that point.
so any truth has to be true for all times and all people.
So do you
Otherwise,
think,
it wouldn't be truth. It would just be relative.
But
do you
also,
think
are we
there's
saying
any-
society is truth, though? Society must exist. Why is that?
well, no, and that's the biggest problem I have with society is our overpopulation and our group gatherings that are so large that they can't maintain themselves. Do you think there's any religion that actually practices that right that can actually get us through this mental health issues that we get when we stack people on top of each other in Chicago or New York? And you generally just have this number of society that's going to end up with mental health issues just because
You
of
know
the
why you have the mental health issues? Because the resonances are completely different. And so it's that interference pattern that you feel from those that are around you.
You mean the separateness?
It's not just
the separateness. You mean the feel of dissociation, kind of.
Yeah. So, Divine Tiffany, thank you very much for joining. Have a good night and good luck tomorrow. Yeah, I'm almost in the same thing. It's 3:00 in the morning here, and I still got shit that I got.
We've had a good show. It's at least 1 in the morning over here as well.
However, we need to touch on that one. So repeat that again, Joey, please. Oh, the separateness. Okay, what happens is, we're all one energy outside of this reality. In this reality, we are individuals. And this reality was created so that we could be those individuals. The problem is that the individual ends up, like we saw in Noah's time, they kill each other because it's might makes right. It's the law of the jungle, and there's nothing positive about that. And that ends up spiraling out of control and societies destroy themselves, because of that. So that's why he gave us a certain resonance to where we can actually be sustainable and help others grow and have that feedback from karma, because what karma actually is the infrastructure to make these things happen. The Christ told us if you put in a dinar or something, it will come back 100 times. But the same thing happens with negative stuff. Yes, that's karma. That is the infrastructure that God actually put in here so that our actions have consequences. Because in the end, once we're out of here, we have extremely powerful roles. But along with that comes the responsibility with that, because we will be able to simply think and it will exist and it will happen. The problem is that we don't have the ability yet. We're training ourselves throughout this life to control our thoughts so that we don't create stupid shit. We are living in this material realm so that we can find out the consequences of those thought processes. So eventually we can learn that, doing that or punching out somebody that you don't agree with, that has a tendency to leading to his friends coming out, punching you out. Somebody calls the cops and you do 5 to 10 in jail. So there are consequences to the actions. You have a thought, but you don't necessarily act on it. That is controlling your thought. That is controlling your actions. Actually, what we need to do is control our thoughts, because we sin against him in thought, word, and deed. They are all 3 different energy levels of the manifestation.
If
Thoughts.
you look, I tell you, if you look upon her with lust, then you have already trespassed her, right?
Absolutely, which is why I got kicked off yesterday, because absolutely right. It is so we have to control our thoughts, and our thoughts have to come from love. Okay, now what is love? Love is God. And he sent his son to teach us what love means, what love actually is, how it interacts with others. Okay, and he said, these things that I do, you will. Then the disciples were able to cure leprosy and heal the blind and that sort of thing. They were doing miracles as well. And he says, I tell you that in the end days, they will be able to do as you do. Why? Because the enlightenment thing. The problem is that the adversary is twisting that information around so that we take that enlightenment and we, like he actually said, they're going to tell you that you will be gods. But God also told us we are gods, little g. Why? Because he gave us the power of creation. We are co-creating along with him. Okay, but he wants people that are going to co-create
and the image of him.
I create as I speak, abracadabra.
You create as you think. Thought leads to speech. Speech leads to action. Now, what happens with that? A thought. You have a little thought comes in. Yeah, you blow it out of your mind. That thought's never going to become real because you didn't put more energy into it. But all of a sudden, I've got a thought. Oh, somebody mentioned I should write a book. Yeah, well, maybe I will. What will I write about? Well, I'm interested in this and that, but nobody's going to be interested in that. And so you go through those thought processes, and eventually, whenever you think enough, you get enough energy into that thought process, the words start to come out, and you start to tell other people. And as soon as you tell other people, all of a sudden, that thought process goes into their head, and they start thinking about it. And they start telling you or telling others. And eventually, enough people talking about it, somebody's actually going to do something about it. And so they are all different levels of the energy, but it all starts with the thought. Okay. Everything started as a thought. Somebody had to think about a wheel before they actually built the damn thing. Okay. So they're all just different levels of the energy, and we are pure energy anyway. So I haven't figured everything out. I'm still trying to, but there's a lot of stuff that I did because other people figured it out. And I'm not, this super brainiac that I know all the answers because I know all the answers. No, I've read about a lot of other people that knew all the fucking answers.
Well, and it's
if I want to know about,
it's Einstein who said, "I can see so far because I stand on the shoulders of giants."
Exactly. For example, if I want to know about physics, well, I'm going to look up Einstein's and I'm going to read about the theory of relativity. If I'm interested in quantum mechanics, I don't know much about quantum mechanics, but Richard Feynman knew a whole hell of a lot about quantum mechanics, and the things that he wrote down explained a lot to me, and the way that he was able to teach quantum mechanics to his kids and the examples that he did, that all worked, and I take that on with me.
And
do I know about love?
What you said with Virgin, what we were saying with Virgin earlier, you don't have to know everything, but if you know who knows something.
Exactly. And you get those influences and you collect that information, and then all of a sudden it's this big puzzle piece. It's just a big puzzle. And each one of those are little pieces in the puzzle. When you can actually see the full puzzle completed, you're like, oh, now it makes sense. Because when you look at the little piece, it's like, where the hell does that go? Does it fit here? No. Does it look like this one? No. It's got blue, so it's got to be over here. But so you're trying to put the piece itself doesn't make much sense. But when you look at the entire picture, you're going, okay, so we're here to love. We're not here to make tons of money. We're here to help others and to propagate the love of He who created us. Okay, makes sense. There are those who are here to destroy, that are based on hate, that are based on anger, that are exact opposite. Their intention is to destroy everything. Our objective is to not convert them, but let them know. That's my biggest thing that I had with. I had a big problem with the churches when I was growing up because they were not proselytizing. They were obligating. You must think this way. You have to be yours. You're horrible. You got to think. Dude, you gave me the message. Thank you. Go on. Because after all, it is free will, and I can choose what I'm going to choose. You planted the seed. Thank you very much. Don't expect the tree to grow tomorrow. No, the seed is there. And that's our point. We have to place the seed. We don't change other people's minds. We just place the seed there. And if they constantly think about it, if it's that thought that comes in and just goes out, well, that's the seed tossed out on stony ground to where, it will have shallow roots. The sun will come out, will dry up, and it will die. Another seed fell on the road and the birds ate it up and it didn't become a fruit. There's seeds that go into other areas and the weeds grow up along with it. And so the seed gets strangled out by the weeds. But then there's seed that falls on fertile ground and it takes root and it grows. Mm-hmm. We can't control the road, the swamp, or the rocks. But we got to keep tossing the seeds out there because it will get onto fertile soil.
So faith is like a tree. When faith is young, it needs to be protected, and you put a fence around it and you protect it. But when faith is strong and when faith is old, it can protect many and it can provide shelter for many.
And it leads to a little bit less protection as well. And that's what Jesus mentioned about the Holy Spirit. Because those who are young in the Spirit, they feel the Spirit along with them because he's holding them, going, all right, come on, next step, come on. Yeah, you're okay. You're okay. Come on, let's go. Later on, you're jogging, you're running, and the Spirit's right there next to you going, good job, dude. I'm not holding you up anymore, but I'm right there.
Fool, why did you doubt? When he's getting out and walking on the water, Peter steps out onto the water and is doing it. Peter
he was walking on the water. That's the whole thing that I'm talking about. It wasn't just Jesus that was walking on the water. Peter walked on the water as well.
Ye fool, why did you doubt?
Because when he got to him, then he started, because before his only focus was Jesus. He was going to get to Jesus. So he was going to do what he had to do.
And then
Jesus
he realized
on water, he was going to. And then when he got there, he started looking around and he didn't believe it, going, how am I walking on water? Nobody can walk on water. Whoa!
Yeah.
You have to have the focus of the Lord, and everything else ends up just. We have to be above the energy. Okay, that's the whole thing. Because he could have walked on the water and he could have floated as well. It just because it's all just these phasal interferences, right? So we are stuck in the idea that it's a material, physical world, and people can't walk on water. Really? We got spiders, we got lizards, we got all kinds of animals that can actually, through their, granted, some spiders walk on the water because they have a higher
surface tension.
Thank you. That was the word that I was
the lizard that runs is extremely fast. However, in their own reality tunnel, they don't comprehend how they're breaking these laws. They just do it.
They just do what they're doing. Exactly. Yeah. They were born that way. They don't have to think about it. And like Jake told me that last Friday, I'm too much in my head. I was overthinking things, but I always did that. And that's why I'm not walking on water, because I'm overthinking it, going, holy crap, how am I doing this? Whoa.
Oh, yeah, you have that fallback moment. Yeah.
I got lots of different fallback moments. Nobody's perfect and nobody's walking the path perfectly, but we make an effort. Okay, and what we got to do is keep listening to the Lord, because he's the one that in the end will, accept us into his home or recycle us. Fear not the man who can kill you. Fear the one who, after he kills you, can toss your soul into hell. I mean, there's a lot bigger consequences to what's in this life.
In a shamanic journey, I was ascending to the higher realms, and I basically I got to a pyramid, and at the very entryway of the pyramid was Anubis. And he was there with the scales to weigh my heart against the feather of truth. And this was in my shamanic spirit journey. And it came to be my turn. And I told him, my heart is not going to be lighter than the feather of truth. And he said, your honesty is a virtue that you may pass. So it's that the living living as you are.
Being
Embracing.
grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
Because we are where we are because we chose to be where we are. And so
You
the
have to own
basic
it.
essence of it is being thankful. If you're thankful for what you have and where you are, and the reason I was in such a bad place on Friday is because I wasn't thankful. And then later on, my dad was, worried because all I wanted to see is you happy and you're not happy. Why aren't you happy? And I'm like, I don't know why the fuck I'm not happy. I mean, geez, man, come on. I just know that I'm not happy. But, a couple of days later, a couple of bowls later, you start to appreciate beautiful wife that does things that other people wouldn't necessarily do for you. The kids that give you a hug before they go to bed, and the different realities. My pet freaking bird that shows up and just eats the stuff. Those little details that I should be thankful for, but I was just ungrateful because I'm not making enough cash. Why? Because everybody's making more money than I am, and I'm just kind of pissy because why the fuck ain't I making cash? Why? Because I'm not a people person. That's why. My dad made lots of cash and people freaking love him. I have a problem with, interacting with people that superficial people or scared people and that sort of thing. It just rubs me the wrong way. And I can't lie to make people feel better. And sometimes depends on the situation, but it's just anathema. I don't like necessarily doing it. So many times I'll just be silent because my dad wasn't silent. He would actually tell people that and he would piss him off as well. He had family members that wouldn't talk to him for a year or so because he mentioned something that was absolutely true, but they didn't like the truth. And so they were pissed at him for a while. And that's the thing. People usually don't like the truth. They're comfortable in their lies.
Yes.
Michael, I don't know if you were on when we were talking about this earlier, but you've heard me talk about how I get my my spiritual fix. And I need to do it at least once a week or once every 2 weeks. And it is a refresher. I was talking to Joey about this. I wake up the next day. The first thing I am is happy to be alive. Second thing is, oh my gosh, the sun's out. Man, I get barefoot and I go walk in the grass for a little bit. There's just these things that I just overlook in my everyday that brings me back to ground level and appreciating the immediate that I don't.
That's important because that's important because you get lost in your work, and that's what everybody happens to do. They get lost in the rigmarole and the grind of the day, and they forget about themselves and the essence of why we're here. We're not here to be slaves and work. Yeah, we have to survive. That's the consequence of sin. We got tossed out of the Garden of Eden, so we got to toil in order to freaking eat. But it got to the point in the U.S., and that's one of the things that I had to focus on, and I wanted, because I saw everybody was busting their ass, everybody's making money, but they weren't fucking happy. So what's the point of doing all that shit if you're not freaking happy? And what the thing is, they get completely lost in the material things that they're doing. Oh, I got to work more so I can get more money so I can get that thing and do that. So you end up working so damn much that you don't have any friends. Your kids, grew up and they didn't even know you. I heard so many older guys, because remember, I was an 8-year-old talking to, 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds. And, whenever you're a kid, they don't pay attention to you. You're like a fly on the wall, literally. And so I would see these older, successful guys that were always bitching about the same damn thing. Oh, my kids are older and I didn't get to know them and time went by so quickly and I didn't spend enough time with them because I was always here at the office and I don't know. And there's also a phrase, nobody on their deathbed says, I should have worked more.
Yeah. Yep.
Everybody on the deathbed says, I should have spent more time with family. I should have spent more time with friends. I should have enjoyed life a little bit more now that it's gone. Everybody says that. So if that's the thing that all the older people have whenever they're looking back on their lives, there are things that they wish they could have changed. Well, I was in the beginning of my life and I'm like, well, I'm not going to let that happen to me, or I'm going to try and do a little bit different than that. And so I did do it different. And I fell into other traps of, not having enough money because my work ethic isn't the same, but I'm basically the dichotomy of the new wine and the old wine sack. I kept wanting to keep the old wine sack, and it just rips everything apart. So I'm not neither here nor there, and that is a problem. Why? Because I should be completely there, but not drinking, not smoking, and not having any fun or enjoying with your friends also didn't seem like an enjoyable aspect of reality. My grandparents were always angry and depressed. I'm still trying. I didn't figure it out. I'm still fucked up and depressed and everything else, but I'm trying to get there.
No,
maybe I can help
middle
out.
path. And you touched earlier on this kind of you go where your roots are watered, but I would go so far as to say you can't trick a plant. You can't lie to a plant. A plant knows if it's being watered, so in that degree, it's I suppose following and aligning yourself like with your with where you ought to be.
It's being grateful for where you are, even though where you are isn't necessarily
as well. I think that ties into it. Being always grateful for what you have. But we were talking about this earlier. There's some people that are grass are greener people in my aspect of they're always looking for the better thing. We were talking about earlier. It's the 90-10. Is you could have 90% of things going right, but you still want that 10%, and so you'll keep seeking a higher existence. But
it's that ego.
Sometimes you'll actually forfeit. Yeah, or sometimes you'll actually forfeit other things that you didn't realize you had in order to get that 10%.
Never appreciate what you have until it's gone.
That's right. I'm too busy smoking my own grass to notice if yours is greener.
That's the thing. Whenever I told my wife that I was thinking, as soon as this whole thing blows over, I might go up to Chicago and get something done. And my wife's going, be careful with that grass is greener on the other side thing. And I'm going, yeah, I checked out the grass over here and dude, job's sucking. I can't.
We don't got much grass. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, because one of the reasons why
we had a drought this year. We had an Arctic freeze a couple years ago. It just depends. Like season to season, it's so wild now with the way that the climate's changing.
Yeah, and it seems that, and I guess that this was predictable, and it was predicted, but the weather is just becoming more and more extreme. And it seems that
is it because of HARP or is it because of Nibiru?
Interesting
because of sin.
Interesting question. I think it's honestly due to the fact that the pirate population is declining. If you look at Pastafarianism, may you be touched by his noodly appendage. There's actually a direct correlation between the decline in pirate population and the increase in greenhouse gases.
But just because correlation doesn't mean causation.
Pirate. So the more pirates there are, the more
we need more pirates. Things. Yeah, we need more pirates in this world, basically.
Ahoy, matey!
Basically, I think that goes down to the root point of causation and correlation are not necessarily.
That is the big tipping point in that argument. Yes, sir.
yes. Just because they correlate doesn't mean that one causes the other or that they exist in the same reality.
Quiet. Don't teach people to argue against me. Hold on.
Now they like to say that it's our carbon footprint that's doing it and everything else, and I get that. I understand. Because there was a friend of mine said, but humans are too small. There's no way that we can actually affect the climate. But then again, there's 7.5 billion of us.
And
we are individually destroying much more than entire communities were able to destroy 150 years ago. Because
what's the name of the guy who invented DDT? he also invented the stuff that he invented basically this coolant system. The one organism ever in the history of the planet that basically had the biggest influence on and impact on our ecology. He invented like 4 different things, all of which, leaded gasoline. You can look this up actually if you want to pull this up and put it on the thing. The dude who invented, just look up who invented leaded gasoline. He invented like a shit ton of things that like were very bad ideas. And like, it's so funny that yes, you're right. There's over 7 billion of us, and individually, we don't really contribute that much. We have to plant about 200 trees each person to offset our carbon footprint.
No. For our carbon footprint, maybe. But I had 2. There was a statistic.
It only takes 2. 2 fully matured trees will actually create enough oxygen for 4 members of a family.
I had heard that it was 2 square meters of
I'm talking about
green, which is why I planted 8 square meters of trees.
Carbon footprint and oxygen production are 2 different things too.
Yeah.
Different things, because you got to offset your car plus your air conditioner plus the stuff that you put in the grass. You got to offset all those other things. Yeah, absolutely. Now I offset like a motherfucker. All right, so I got trees coming out the yin yang to where I'm offsetting for my wife's entire family because their gardens are gravel. Okay, they don't like the having to have the maintenance of all that stuff. But Thomas
Midgley Jr. He is like the one organism on the planet that had the most negative impact on the planet.
I also heard a theory recently.
I don't know. Monsanto's doing a pretty good job of it.
Well, maybe they're number 2.
I also recently heard a interesting study by I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of this YouTube personality. It's Salty2, and it was basically about how they took a DNA sample, or it might have been a blood sample, and it had cancer cells in it, and they eventually actually shared it with a lot of other things, and it spread this cancer, and they thought it was actually helping things. And it was a long story about how we spread this cancer all over society, and it was all based on this one person, and she was a real person. She really did exist. And it's wild that they even claim that it might have been the answer to why we ended World War II. Like, there's actually a pretty deep theory on it. I would have to pull it up to reference it. But if anybody ever, what's that?
That sounds deep.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
And it all just has to do with a blood transfusion, because this person might be responsible because it was their blood. That's the theory behind it. It's like, could you hold somebody responsible for a government or a lab or a hospital using their blood for further research and then infecting others? Would you consider yourself?
I would have a problem with a lab that likes to create infections to fuck up other people.
You wouldn't be held.
Let's not go down that road. Let's not go down that road.
This sounds like we're approaching the Wuhan talk. Maybe we shouldn't go there.
That's why we're not going down that road. Jake just mentioned that.
Exactly. Don't even bring up names.
I know.
Exactly. Which is why I try and tiptoe around him. But speaking of tiptoeing, Marfugel, okay, he's one of the reasons why I try and tiptoe. But he's got a story that he calls "Quick the Cat," and that's what I wanted to talk about, the blood transfusion thing, because what happens is the guy has a shitty day at work, but as he's going home, he ends up arguing with his wife, and then his wife goes and argues with the oldest son, and the oldest son argues with the youngest son, and the youngest son can't argue with anybody, so he goes and kicks the cat.
Yep.
So the cat ended up getting kicked because the dad came home pissed. Yep. And so we propagate that negative energy throughout, and it's very easy to do. However, if we decide to, all right, I had my problems, but I'm still going to be nice to this other person. or you mention something positive about a person, all of a sudden that waitress that was having a really shitty day, all of a sudden you tell her, yeah, you did a good job, and you give her a decent tip, and she's like, well, that guy was nice. Well, maybe the day didn't suck so bad. And all of a sudden they, change their entire mentality about their day. So yeah, we can have our energy.
You know what's beautiful about that is that's what me and Joey have been talking about the whole episode before you got on, was the correlation of this energy that you carry around, and you reflect on others, whether you want to put a positive message off or whether you want to put a negative message off. You just affirmed what we've been talking about the whole time.
Exactly, and how your vibration really does just
that's what Jesus told us about anyway, because everything we need to do, we need to love, we need to work in love and compassion, because that's the resonance that we want to spread around the world. That's the message that needs to be spread. It's the compassion. It's not doing things because the rules or this or that. No, the rules are they're not even rules. They're tips on how to live a better life. If we go around killing everybody, well, shit's going to go off the rails real quick. If we go around stealing whatever we want, well, we got summer riots of 2020. If we decide that all these things, all these rules, commandments are there for us to live better. It's not necessarily for his benefit. He can recycle and restart the whole damn thing all over again. Okay, so it's no skin off his nose, but it makes our life better, and it makes the life of people around us better. And that's the thing that brought me back to the base of the book, because of the good book, because I found that in the end, there's nothing really negative about it. People have associated negative connotations because they want their own individuality and they want to be free to do whatever they want to do. That's fine. You do you. But that doesn't mean it's going to be beneficial overall to society or overall to you. So much so that lots of people that make their own decisions and do what they're going to do end up extremely depressed and empty. Because they don't realize that they're doing their thing, but they weren't part of something bigger, and that's, the essence of trying to follow what the dictums that he told us. Now, they don't like that because in Corinthians, it mentions that the things that he's not going to accept, and among those is drunks. So I'm like, well, shit, alcoholics aren't accepted. Am I going to throw out the book because I want to continue being an alcoholic? No, I'm going to try and focus on my habit and try and reduce it, or recognize the fact that it's not necessarily a good thing in the long run. And I should have learned that from my grandfather, who died of liver cancer because he drank like a freaking fish.
You know what I like about the last part? He can push the reset button on this matrix we live in.
Yep. And he already told us that he's going to do that. There will be a new heaven and a new earth when we pass the great filter.
Well, no, when you think of reset, oh gosh, this is going to take me down a whole nother path.
No, we're not going to talk about the great reset, because those
no. I wasn't going into that. I was going to say, could it be as simple as the Great Flood, or could it be as big as
we tried that before? We already tried the flood before. It didn't work.
It did. It did work.
It did. Saddam and Gomorrah were no longer around.
The lizard-induced genetics and the gigantism that resulted from that. We've got all kinds of animals like Brontosaurus, which isn't a thing. You've got Tyrannosaurus Rex, which was a thing. You've got the pterodactyls, which now I learned that's not even their name. There's another name for those flying lizards as well. They were
starting to figure out that they actually had feathers, most of them.
Yeah.
Science is starting to prove that most of them had feathers.
Not most of them, but
it's interesting that we make them so lizard form, but they also had feathers. It's a rare trait. I think it's interesting.
Well, yeah. Basically, a velociraptor turned into a chicken.
Yeah.
Did God make dinosaurs?
The fallen ones altered the genetics of everything on the planet, which is why it had to be reset. because they wanted to make everything like them.
That's a great. Okay, that gives me another great question. Do you think there was humans when there was dinosaurs?
Scientifically speaking, I would say that's impossible. Biblically speaking, I would say it's probable. And now we are finding evidence that actually proves that we did coexist at the same time on one level or another. So it's
I love
that's
that.
all that's all
beautiful.
funky stuff.
No, I love that perspective. That's beautiful. You actually, you know what I mean? You ingested it all.
Yeah,
It
kind of
wasn't
actually
just
you summed up the 3 different perspectives really on that.
exactly.
I always go on a GPS type form. You know how GPS works, right?
Yeah.
You work off
The dial
you work off
Redirecting.
No. You're thinking about the GPS. Oh yeah, the Google
Voice.
Maps. But the way that it works is that it takes 3 to 5 different satellite signals, and it finds out the distance from each one. And so, if we know where the satellite's at and where it was capturing your signal from, and this other satellite captured your signal here, and you're such and such a distance from that satellite, and this other satellite, because you got to have minimum 3. But preferably 5 to get a better signal. Now we got 20, so we know exactly where we are within an inch. So my focus on truth was the same way. I always wanted to get different ones, and what they had in common was the truth.
And the more points of perspective you have, the better you can cross analyze. Yeah.
Boom.
That's always been my focus.
Yeah.
Doing the GPS thing on truth.
I appreciate the reference.
That should be the intro to the Penner perspective right there.
Yeah.
I think you're doing your intro wrong. I think we need to get you. Okay. So when we get offline, I gotta show you. Our new intro. It's interesting.
Okay.
Let's wrap it up on that good note, guys. It's we're 3.5 hours in almost. We'll call it a night. Thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite. Tonight wasn't my night, but I'm glad I was able to take advantage of the last 2.5 hours of that. So thanks, guys. Great conversation.
Oh, dude, we wanted you on here. That was beautiful. I'm glad you joined us.
Likewise. Yeah.
Thank you, Joey, and we'll all talk again soon. Thanks, guys.